Greetings, friends, and welcome back to another episode of Dreamscapes. Today, we have cats, as usual, all over my notes. We have our friend Tim Thomas from Brisbane, Australia. He is the founder of Breathwork in Bed. He is on a mission to uplift people and the world through quality sleep with 10 years experience in the hardcore veteran recovery space, bringing a unique lived experience in health, wellness, breathwork, and mental health. He is the author of Fight, Flight, and Feel. You can find him, of course, at breathworkinbed.com.au, and you can search for his app on the app stores with just 3 keywords: breathwork in bed, like breakfast in bed, but breathwork in bed. I got to read that out loud because I can't remember any of that. That's too much. For my part, would you kindly like, share, and subscribe? Tell your friends. I play video games Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. Pacific, most nights. Tune in to recent streams to watch me scream at a video game like an absolute idiot because I get frustrated by my lack of skills. That said, this episode brought to you in part by one of my books. I'm going to put it up on the screen. I can't remember which one it is. It's going to be right over there. Please buy my books. You can find them at Benjamin the Dream Wizard, BenjaminTheDreamWizard.com. You can also head on over to BenjaminTheDreamWizard.locals.com, building a community there. That's where you find the custom cocktail recipes for the video games and much, much more. Best place to reach out to me if you want to be a guest. And that's enough out of me. Tim, thank you for being here. We've already had a great conversation, like off air. I'm like, we should have been recording most of this.
You're absolutely right, but yeah, I'm loving it so far, Ben. You've got a fantastic energy, and I'm really looking forward to interacting here. And what I find amazing about these podcasts is when people really get into that zone and they're both authentically sharing. I like to say you take the clutch out of your jaw and you just flow. No matter how many people are listening, everyone's getting nourished. It's like this amazing thing, like authentic connection. Maybe we just needed a couple of thousand people listening for us to really connect with another human.
Sometimes, or the knowledge in the background that we are speaking to more than just ourselves sometimes makes us consider our words more carefully, or at least focus our intent. What am I saying that other people are going to hear and see, and how is it going to be of any kind of benefit to them? I've always got that going.
Alternatively, you could just go, F it. I can't reach everybody. I can only be myself, and you can get really singular. You know,
that's true.
Some of my best. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah. I think it both works too. But there's a what was it? What am I? So I have, oh God, this brain all over the place. Sometimes got to back up. I have a great appreciation for, of course, Freud and Jung and all the dream interpretation people, but I have also great respect for, from a clinical practice side of things, the humanist psychologists. One of them, my favorite, Carl Rogers, Carl Jung and Carl Rogers. He said, there's 2 things you need to be of benefit to someone else, or to create a therapeutic space and deliver on that therapy. You need, number 1, unconditional positive regard, meaning I'm genuinely here to do something helpful for you. I want the best for you. You got a mindset in that direction. And the other one is genuineness. Just be yourself. And I would actually, this reminds me of a story. I'm going to talk too much already. It reminds me of a story of when I would train other folks to do what I did inside the inpatient psychiatric
hospital. And I didn't understand the spirit in which you did it.
Yeah, well, like my purpose was to turn them into people that were capable of doing what I do. And I'm like, how do I explain this to people? And one of the key things was genuineness. I'm like, if you feel overwhelmed, you go to a problem and you don't know how to help them, I want you to say that. I want you to acknowledge it in the moment. They're going to dump their problems on you and you're going to go, wow, this is overwhelming and I can't fix it. I don't know what to do. So just tell them that. Say, I am having very strong feelings of sadness, that I want to help you and I don't know what to do, but I'm listening. I mean, maybe we can talk it out, but at least I'm here and I care. And so that would work miracles sometimes. Just keep it real. If you have an answer, give it. If you don't, say, I don't know. That's okay. It's like, that's a Socratic wisdom.
If I could speak to what you're saying right now, because my brain was exploding too as you're saying that, what you're talking about is the rarest thing, in my observation, the most productive and rare thing on this planet is a true friend. Okay. And, I sort of see, well, what is the dynamics of a true friend? And you get to drop your guard and be yourself 100%, no filters. Okay. And you get to share a space where that other person has what I call a zero threat environment. And in that zero threat environment, you're free to move and do whatever you want. And essentially, we always know what we need to do, but if there's blockages in the way of that, and I thought, well, the only way, I can't be a true friend to everybody, but the only way for me to share that space with others is to be 100% sincere. And that doesn't happen on its own. I have to be honest with myself. I have to say, look, how much stuff do I need? How much money do I need? How much physical activity? How much spiritual connection? How much do I need to play with my dog before I can be in that position of abundance? And because if I feel like I'm inadequate in a certain area of my life, if I feel like I don't have enough money, I don't have enough sex, if I don't have enough stuff, then that's going to be in that sort of psychic space, call it, when I'm interacting with somebody, and they're going to sense it. I won't articulate it, but they'll sense that I'm trying to control the outcome of the situation.
Yeah.
You know? So for me to be completely sincere and get rid of any kind of control, I have to be 100% complete within myself. You know, so sincerity happens as a result of completion. So before I did this podcast today, I was up at 4:30 a.m. I always, it's kind of silly, but it works. I get on the roof of my house and I look at the sunrise. And I'm doing breath work as that first ray of light comes over the horizon. And a fun fact about that first ray of light is it starts a cascade of chemical interactions through your eyeballs. We've got these light receptors in our eyeballs that create these very powerful neurochemicals, and it basically it does a lot of things, but one of which is synchronizes all your circadian rhythms. So you've got like a couple of thousand different clocks running inside of you, and that first light over the horizon synchronizes all of them. So when people ask me, what's your best tip for sleep? See the sunrise, that first light, and stare at it for 5 or 10 minutes. Do some breath work, because then at nighttime, all of you are getting completed together. It's not like you turn off the light and part of you still running around in your head. So in what I'm trying to say here is, I really wanted to have a good interaction with you, and that started a few hours ago by me filling up my cup and becoming abundant, because I don't give of myself anymore. I give of my abundance. Because when I've worked in the veteran space and I was very successful. Heck, my lifetime goal was saving 40 veteran lives from suicide. Because we've lost 40 in Australia, we've lost 40 guys to bombs and bullets in Afghanistan, but 30 times that amount to suicide. And I thought, I'm going to die happy if I save 40 guys from suicide. That was achieved within a year. 1 or 2 guys a week would say, Tim, do you remember that conversation? That changed everything, right? But what nobody knew, and what I didn't even know, was that every 6 weeks in that time, I'd have to hit the bottle really hard for 3 days because I was giving of myself. I wasn't giving of my abundance, And so now I always work the first hour or two of the day so I can be abundant and give of that. So like if it's much easier to, if I was at 100% and I give 10% away to somebody, I'm like, oh, I'm down to 90%. You better do something with that. Somewhere inside of me, right? But it's the right thing to do, so I'll keep doing it. So sometimes the nastiest people come from initially the most generous people, because they're giving of themselves, not of their abundance. So now these days, because I invest in myself, I create that abundance, and I'm at 500%, I can give away, I can be generous with 20%, and people can love it, hate it, tell me to F off. It doesn't matter. It's a very big switch when you realize you're connected to something so much more powerful than what can be taken.
Yeah.
We've all been taken from, and if you hang up on the 25 cents that's been taken and forget the fact that tomorrow you can make $1 million, but people spend years chasing that 25 cents, and you're missing out on the fact that you could be, an energetic millionaire every single day.
Yeah, definitely. Well, there's a couple of things there, and kind of working backwards, as I often do. It's amazing to think that the best sleep hygiene doesn't necessarily start a couple hours before bed. It could start as far back, and as you're saying, it does, as far back as waking up properly. In a sense, the old cliche, getting up on the right side of the bed. And I'm sure you probably have more to say about that, but before I forget, the other side of things too, of like, whoa, I just dropped a bunch of hair in my face. Oh, it tickles.
I wish I had your hairline.
Well, this is going to continue to recede up on here. I got the old Dracula Widow's Peak type of thing there, which will make it. It'll make me even look more wizardly in the future. I'm hoping. So the thing about so pride was the key of it too. So if you're working inpatient psychiatric, it is a locked unit. We're dealing with some of the most sick people. I'm getting a weird squelch. I think it's me. And I think I'm just
No, that was me. My chair moved.
Oh, no. It's actually a, I think it's in my headphones cord. Yep, I unplugged it, plugged it back in. What I wanted to make sure is it wasn't coming through on the audio, but no, it was me. It was my headphones. Long story short, you're working inpatient psychiatric. You are somewhat of a mental health prison guard because there are people out of control. They need containment. It is your job to be in control, not just of other people, but of yourself primarily. But you can't approach therapeutic interactions trying to control the outcome. You have to actually find a way to be out of control and in control at the same time, or to at least whoa, I lost you. Oops. What do we got there? 11:20. Hello, welcome back.
Yeah, sorry, mate. I don't know what happened there. Was that me or you?
It could have been the cat laying on the keyboard, or it could have been absolutely nothing. I hesitate to assign
in control and out of control.
Right,
It's
that was
funny how
the
that cut
perfect
out then.
example. Holy shit! The synchronicities abound.
Everyone else noticed that,
right? That was amazing. I'm just writing a little timestamp down here, so I'm probably gonna leave it in. That was so brief. It's a great example. No need to. I don't do any fancy editing. We were talking about this before. What you see is what you get. Okay, long story short on that, there's a right way to be out of control, or are we
going to chase the 25 cents or engage with $1 million?
Exactly. So when you're in that therapeutic interaction, you have to be in control of yourself. You have to not do things that are dangerous, bad, harmful, put other people at risk. You need to make sure the client is safe. But after that, you can let go of being right. You can let go of power over the outcome. And that was one of the things I tried to instill in folks as much as I possibly could, is that there is no therapeutic outcome possible in a power struggle. You have to get out of that completely in order to be of benefit to someone. It's not helping you. It's not helping them. It's not helping anybody. It's not going to make the unit safer. It's not going to make their psychosis any less severe. Those are my two cents on that.
Wow. That's, I get it. I get it. Yeah.
But I did want to ask you too. So there was a word or phrasing you used. This is why I usually write things down when the cat's not laying on my notes. It was your abundance, and I wanted to focus in just a little bit more on that and explaining it to folks, because people go like, "What does that mean? How do I conceive of that concept? How do I know when I'm functioning from taking from myself or taking from the extra, almost like the profit we've created on top of our. So I don't know if you want to explore that a little bit.
No. That's a solid point, and something that people could really take away from this is I encourage people to think of their energy like money, in the way that how you invest it is how you get it back. Mm-hmm. And all of us, the way I see humans, Ben, is where this energetic signature wrapped up in meat. Okay.
Yep.
And when that meat aligns with what that energetic signature wants to do, whatever that is, and it's quite unique to the individual, you get a massive return on your energy. Okay, it might even be a difficult thing, but you spend $100 energy, you get $10,000 back. So it shows up very powerfully and obviously in physicality. Okay, everyone's got a physical thing that they do that gives them a lot of energy back. For me, it's breath work. That's why I do breath work for 2 hours a day. That lights me up. Other people, they could have it as walking. They could have it as lifting, running, whatever it is, stretching. So whatever your body does that lines up with your energetic signature, then you get a massive return. And the idea here is to live as an energetic millionaire. So think of your shares portfolio. You've got some that are giving a really good return, some that aren't, and you probably want to have the ones in your life that are giving you a really good return. Mm-hmm. So wisdom to me is filling your life full of those things, those actions, those people that give you a massive return on your investment. So there are things in your life that do take from you. And there's a process of time. It could be a very long wheel before that energy comes back to you. Like working with veterans, and you're working with psychiatric patients. Sometimes you feel like you're giving, and this is where every day, if you can, and this is why I'm such a proponent of sleep. Sleep done right charges you up, helps you create that abundance, and unfortunately, one thing that stops people, I mean, there's a number of things, but I'll just speak to the abundance. I believe, if you call it destiny or your calling, we are here to find those energetic investments that we do that gives us a massive return. Okay? So, you've created a podcast show, and I hope you get a massive return. You've got cats, there's no accident. You got cats because they give you a return. Okay, and I always try and have myself in a position of abundance, so I've always got more than I need. So if my day asks more of me, then I can easily be generous. And I've usually found there's two completely different types of people in this world, Ben, and they're both you. And in the way that there's the you that's living in energetic abundance, and then there's the you that's living in adequacy, and the way we live, it's the same world, very different planet to live on. And so I really encourage people, and I've, to fill your life full of the things that make you abundant. And the first thing you need to do of the day is access that abundance from inside yourself. So that's why I'm such a proponent of breath work in bed. So before your feet hits the floor, you do the right kind of breath work coming out of bed. You turn that lead, that heavy feeling, into gold with breath work, and if you can win the first 10 minutes of your day, you're on a really good chance to win the rest of the day. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. I think, like I was saying earlier, getting up on the right side of the bed. I mean, starting the day right. Here's one thing that I am a wizard of dreams. I'm not a wizard of sleep in that sense. So my specialty is not, Ben, how do I get a good night's sleep? Now, I've got some tips and tricks, but not anything more than the usual. You want to shut off electronic devices. You don't want too much blue light. You want fewer distractions. You want a solid routine. I mean, I know a lot of the psychological basics. Like here's some simple stuff you can do. But I always like to hear from other people who are like, well, here's how to get better sleep. Here's tips and tricks I've learned. Here's a philosophical perspective that can inform how you implement some of those things. So I'm always trying to tease out, well, what is my lane and how do I stick to it in a way that I don't pretend to be more knowledgeable than I really am. Again, letting go of that pride thing. It's like, I'm not supposed to be the expert in everything. If I was, I would be Benjamin the Everything Wizard. I'm not. But my thing is dreams. So you bring me a dream, I'm good with that. But so I didn't know if you wanted to talk generally about sleep, the benefits of it, the way to improve it.
Here's the thing. When I had PTSD, there was 1,000 goddamn professors coming in saying, here's what PTSD is. After 7 years, we've discovered this. And I'm like, good on you, buddy. I already know what it is because I'm living with it, and so is the rest of the veteran community. Okay, and I'm just speaking on lived experience here, and it's not limited to the veteran community, right? So I said, if I'm ever gonna do anything in the public space, it's got to pass a P test. Okay, so my P test is the 3 Ps: powerful, positive, and permanent. So there's a lot of powerful and positive stuff out there, but how permanent is it? How much do people take away a week later, a year later, a decade later? So there's lots of these powerful and positive people out there going, hey, look at this, and it's a fun, it's good distraction, but a week later, what's changed? So I withdrew from public life about 2 years ago, Ben, after I got an email from a very high-ranking Army officer. I'd just done a workshop at the Army base in front of a couple of hundred corporals and sergeants, and he was sending me an email saying, Tim, these guys are coming to me saying that this was the first good night's sleep they had in up to 5 years. And he actually thought that was great. And I said, that's terrible. They haven't slept in 5 years.
Yeah.
Right? But the thing that he said next withdrew me from public space. And that was, okay, it was good when you were there, but do you have any resources for people when you're not there? And I'm like, holy shit, I've just failed my own P test. I'm not permanent. You know, I can give talks the rest of my life to these things. Awesome. Right. But then how do I, if I'm really about giving, you know, power to people and connecting to the power, because I'm not powerful. I've just got a connection to it, right? Then I've spent the last year or two creating the Breathwork in Bed app, where, you know, you just go in, you say when you want to sleep, when you want to wake up, and then you get these notifications falling out of your phone exactly when you need them. You press a button and, you know, you breathe a certain way to create wonderful peace. And I tell you, it's pretty bloody handy at 3 a.m. to have a button you can press to get yourself back to sleep.
Oh yeah.
You know, I've been there, done that, and to have that at 3 a.m. when you need it, super powerful. But also too, getting out of bed with breath. So before you even force your feet over the edge, you're doing breath work, body activation, and there's a bunch of bonus stuff in there too, which people can discover. But I just to speak to, you know, the idea of really adding value. I want it to go, you know, beyond, you know, this conversation. I want to give people easy access to really powerful habits, because I can't do what you do, but if I can help you sleep better, then you're going to do what you do better, right? Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you something funny. In the Special Forces, we used to weaponize sleep. So we would attack the enemy's sleep patterns, because we knew that if we took out their sleep patterns for 3 days, that would mess them up better than a bullet. Mm-hmm. You know, so we're all on pretty thin ice. All it takes is 3 days of no sleep, and you literally, you'd both of us would probably be in an insane asylum in a padded cell, because we're just incomprehendus.
Oh yeah, anywhere between 3 and, from what I know, 3 and 7 days, and you're straight into psychosis. Just hallucinations, bizarre thoughts, lack of ability to concentrate. I mean, yeah, sleep is no joke.
And yet we wear it like a freaking badge. I only had 3 hours sleep last night. Harden up.
I'm super productive. Not as much as you think.
I've had 6 coffees today. What's your problem? I mean, oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yo, for sure. Oh, that's one thing that, you know, from my schooling and my training, and then all of my recent reading, it's like really brought home to me how important it is that sleep is not optional. That you have to have a good, consistent, healthy sleep pattern, and not just so you have you know, dreams that you can bring to me, but so that you have energy, and so that you have focus, and all the kind of things that you just can't function well without. What was I going to say about?
Ben, you think about everything you have.
Yeah.
No, I'm just thinking. You list everything you have in your life. You know, your work, your play, your relationships, your responsibilities. And I encourage the listeners to do this. And I put it to you: consider the possibility that the quality of all those things in your life is absolutely relative to the quality of your sleep. Mm-hmm. And if you want to destroy somebody, destroy their sleep. Destroy everything in their life, destroy their sleep. For sure. So my favorite saying, and I'm dyslexic, I see things in patterns, sleep is the soil from which everything grows. Mm-hmm. Okay? And this world that we live in, they talk about health and fitness, but it's really health and beauty. It's visual. You know, you've got to look a certain way, and that's absolutely nothing to do with where we get our power from. So, you know, let's use the tree analogy. If you don't have a trunk the way you want it to be, there's plenty of people that'll sell you a bunch of stuff. If you don't have the fruit in your life that you want to have, there's plenty of people that'll sell you a bunch of stuff. But someone who really, really knows and understands how to power up growth, they'll go into the soil, they'll go into the unseen. And this is where I get excited, because it's not the sleep that sleep is the first step. What happens is when you improve that soil that you grow from, all those seeds of uniqueness, all those seeds of greatness, they start growing. They cannot not grow when you've got great soil. So, you know, and the scary thing is we can live our whole lives and die with these seeds laying dormant inside of us. You know, that certainly could have been my path, because when I said I couldn't sleep, I lost 6 years of my life to pills. You know, I was this zombified pill eater. And you know, I want others to, what lights me up is seeing that greatness, that uniqueness that comes from somebody, because it's all in there. They just need the right soil, and it cannot not grow. So yeah, that's what really lights me up. It's not so much the sleep, it's what happens after that, and you just stand back and watch the show and cheer them on.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, definitely. I mean, creating the right environment for this is, I've said this too in terms of things like my conception of magic. So like, a guy thinks he's a wizard on the internet, and I really do, based on my understanding of the archetype of the sage in that respect, Gandalf and whatnot. Or Socrates. I put them both in wizard categories. A lot of wizards out there, a lot of prophets too. I was going somewhere with that, and then I got on a tangent.
Yeah, and I cut you off earlier too. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I'd rather hear what you have to say. I mean, my audience has probably heard what I have to say 10 times already on most of the, well, okay, something just came to mind. Throwing back to what you said, you mentioned, you know, the three P's, and suddenly I had a thought that I don't know how well it fits, but it made me think that, you know, so there's positive, powerful, permanent. I love that. I love alliteration. I love simplified systems that are functional. Brilliant little nuggets. I love it. I want to write a book one day about, you know, Wizard's Guide to the Aspirational Aphorism, like small phrases, an apple a day. Take care of your health, you'll be less sick. Very simple stuff, but people don't get it. Like, apples don't make you healthy. Apples don't scare doctors. I'm like, wow, you're literal. You're concrete. Think about it. Anyway, I'll get around to that. Now I'm going off on a tangent. 3 Ps.
To surmise what you're saying, the micro habits is what makes the power.
Absolutely.
We've all done the big stuff, you know, the big challenges, and then a week later, nothing changes, right? But if you can, so when I'm doing target practice, if we miss a target by 10 centimeters at 100 meters, at 200 meters, it's 20 centimeters, 30 centimeters.
Oh, yeah.
So as time, point I'm trying to make is, as we move forward and time goes on, it's not the big deviations that make the difference, because then we come back to normal. It's the small things over time get bigger and bigger and bigger.
Absolutely.
And you know, I can see what you're trying to imbue to people through those, you know, micro habits. Again, very similar to the way I'm doing it, but we're both bringing gifts to the same sort of point of inflection.
For sure. Well, that's another thing. Just so the 3 Ps. Actually, I'm going to put a pin in that and come back to it. But just like you, I want to have more of an effect on people. Like, I can't talk to everybody. It would be nice if I had more people that I had to turn down. It's a good problem to have. But eventually, I won't be able to. But what I can do is offer my example. I can show people how I go through the dream interpretation process, and they can literally do it for themselves with a friend, with a journal. You know, hopefully that's why I consider my material, you know, half education, half entertainment. It's like, you should be interested. This should be edutainment. You should be, this is fun to watch, and hey, I'm learning something. So hopefully by going through my process over and over again, people have hundreds of examples of here's how you do this thing. So I can have an impact much bigger than what I'm able to directly do with each individual person. Okay, that's number one. Before I forget the other one, it made me think of, as you were saying, the 3 Ps, and I thought, you know what? PTSD feels to me like something which is powerful, permanent, and not positive in a way. So there's tweaks to now that doesn't mean that it's permanent. You can never get rid of it. It means that it's not going to go away on its own necessarily.
Well, when you're in it, it feels like you're going to be in it forever.
And if it feels permanent, like. Yeah. Well, depression too.
It's huge. And that's how people end up necking themselves, because they ask the question, what do I know? I'm in pain. I can see I'm causing pain to others. And if I genuinely look into the future, it's only going to get worse. And this is where and I got to talk plainly about suicide right now, because in that state of disconnect, they say, well, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to end the pain to me. I'm going to end the pain to you. I'm doing everyone a favor. I've got a little skip in my step right now because I finally got the solution. I'm going to end the pain. Everyone's going to be happier for it.
Yeah.
And obviously, that's when I stopped them. I said, listen, okay, I can't stop you necking yourself, but what you need to understand is you won't get rid of the pain. You're going to multiply it times 10 to everyone who knows you. So you can kill yourself, but don't think it's going to relieve the pain, because it's going to multiply it to so many other people in so many other ways.
Oh, yeah. That's why a lot of folks, when they argue against it, they say it's ultimately selfish. You are ending your own pain. It's absolutely true. No, there's no lie there. That's true. But you're not ending anyone else's pain. It's not, and no matter what pain you're causing.
Can I speak to the pain for a second?
Please, yeah.
Okay, so I mentioned earlier how I was able to create a lifetime goal of saving 40 veteran lives within a year. Because I saw two things that the mainstream medical system didn't see. And I observed, and again, dyslexic power here, I observed that a certain way that pain worked. And Ben, it didn't matter if the pain was a physical pain or an emotional pain. It would get to a certain duration or intensity where it transformed without the person knowing into loneliness. I'm the only person going through it. Okay, and we're social mammals. We're supposed to, have each other's back. And I put it to you, Ben, if you knew 100% I had your back 100 frickin' percent, and I knew you had my back 100 frickin' percent, everything else is a very small detail. Trust in our fellow mammals is super, super potent. But, and there's nothing we can't do in that space. Bring it on, man. Bring it on. But if we take the opposite of that, where I'm all alone, disconnected, everything's a threat because everything is a threat. If I drop my guard for a second, something bad's going to happen. It's going to be my fault. And everything is hard because everything is hard.
Oh yeah.
So
nothing's ever easy. I like that phrase.
Yeah.
Nothing.
So it's the isolation that is the killer, and that's once I address the isolation by simply sharing us guys especially, we've got these unspoken words in our heart, and we need another guy who's walked the same path to articulate our journey and our words. And once that happens, we start saying things like, fuck, I thought I was the only one. And that breaking of the isolation is the first step in recovery, because you can there's millions of dollars in veteran resources getting poured into veterans, but it's just people don't understand it's water off a duck's back if you are feeling alone and isolated. And this leads me to my next step, which made me successful, and that was being alone for so long, you're very fatigued. So getting people out of fatigue, improving their sleep quality, was the next step in the journey. Because just like people have 98% of everything they need inside of them. They're just like nature. You create the right environment, it grows. But we die when we're feeling all alone, and we die when we're feeling tired. So if we socially reconnect and we get out of fatigue, all that awesomeness, I just noticed that these guys, all the shit would fall off their internal compass, and they'd instinctively know what they needed to do next. But they were in such a state of loneliness, such a state of fatigue, they didn't know what to do next. And they were very vulnerable to suggestion. Like I was, I lost 6 years of my life to pills because I'm like, okay, that's the right thing to do, is do what and because no one at that time was connecting me to breaking my own isolation. I will speak to something because it does tie into the listeners right now. So in 2011, I think it was April, I was about to kill a man. And the government wasn't paying me to do this. I was going to do this one for free. I'd reached rock bottom. I'd stuck my hand up for help, and I went to see a psychologist because that's what you're supposed to do, right? And at the end of this, I told him all the shit I saw in Afghanistan and service. And this guy wasn't just incompetent, he was apathetic, right? And at the end of it, he's like, oh, so you think it was a problem with your mum and dad? And
Wow.
and that's when the second hand on the clock, that little goes tick, 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 it went zoop, and it just stopped. And I immediately looked past him and saw his glass frame psychology degree. And in my state of disconnect, I saw it made a lot of sense to grab that and feed it to him, because this guy was causing pain to others.
Yeah.
So I get out of my chair to do that. And then I feel this hand on my chest, and I hear these words, red light, Tim. You are the toughest mofo you know, and you are struggling in a system that doesn't seem to want to help. How many other people, and I'm on the edge of my chair, I'm about to go grab this glass frame, degree. And how many other people are struggling just like you are? And then I sort of sat back down, and that's when I saw him, Ben. I saw thousands of people left and right of me saying, Tim, you got to find a way forward for you so you can find a way forward for us. You know, and I'm like, shit, it doesn't matter if it takes me a week, a year, a decade. I've got to find a way forward. Because even if it takes me a decade, that's the amount of time I'm going to be able to save all those other people. And if you want to go through the looking glass here, everybody is up against something, you know? Everybody is up against something, some problem, some obstacle that they're trying to get through. And the question I ask is, how many other people are how many other people do you think are in your situation right now up against what you're up against? And you might say dozens, hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands, even millions. Right?
Yeah.
Because they're the people left and right of you right now. And they're all saying, we just need another human that is just like us to find a way forward. Because what you're up against right now gives you the qualification to speak to those people. And words they probably heard before, but because you've come through it, you've moved that knowledge from their head down into their heart, down into their DNA. And only you can do it because you're the one up against that particular obstacle.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
And once you get the gravity of that, that's when you break your isolation. So that's when my isolation was broken. Because in isolation, I could self-justify doing all sorts of crazy stuff. I was about to kill a guy. I'd be in prison right now if I went through that. But when I broke my isolation and I could see that my life is connected. I've got my tribe now. And if you really want to go through the looking glass, if you're getting anything from what I'm saying right now, Ben, you were actually there with me in 2011, willing me on. And if people choose to move forward into this, there's going to be people in your future that are going to say something like this. They're going to say, you know what? We are so glad that back before you met us in 2024, you made certain choices because now you've helped us move forward so much more easily. We could have never done it for ourselves. So thank you for making choices before you met us.
Absolutely. I think that's a great way to look at it too, is like in the kind of retrospective, immediate support in a way. It's like, yes, you took me back there in the story. And that's exactly what I was thinking. Make a different choice, make a better choice. And to think of it that way of us being there in spirit, in the moment. Absolutely. That's everyone who hears that story is like, oh no, we watch it on a movie screen. We're like, don't do it. It'll feel good, but it'll mess you up for life. It also reminded me one of the concepts in, practicing clinical psychology, the idea that sometimes it is the recovered addict that makes the best drug counselor for other. I've been there. I've done that. Let me tell you, it is the survivor, the soldier, survivor of war who can best tell others, look, here's how I got through it. And this isn't based on theory. This is based on experience. I've been there. Oh, yeah. I've felt that. And that's the same thing with depression too, is like, so what I was saying earlier is, based on certain perspectives of looking at these things. Yes, if you are suffering, it is a logical intervention. I'm not saying good or bad, just practical intervention to say, if I no longer exist, therefore I experience no suffering. Technically correct. We all sleep when we're dead. It's one of those things like there is an end to the pain eventually in the terms of lived experience.
It depends on your interpretation of what happens after life. And
this is true. No more physical
pain. The other thing
perhaps.
is if you're suffering in this world, don't think that you take it to your grave. Everyone who meets you is a part of your suffering. You pass that suffering on to your kids. You pass your unlearned lessons onto your kids.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I never think I've had the privilege to take all my unresolved shit to the grave, because I'll just pay that forward
No, it's true.
To others, to my kids, all that sort of stuff. So and please continue on. I'm just inflecting on that, that, the idea that we're at peace,
Not exactly. But
short. Yeah.
Yeah, no. All I'm saying is I'm giving the devil his due in a little bit of a way. It's like, it isn't that suicidal thinking, suicidal ideation in general is necessarily illogical. There's a logic to it that is internally consistent.
Oh yeah, it makes sense when you're in it.
Yeah, but what I like to tell folks, so caveat to that is, depression is a liar. The logic of it is, I am suffering. This suffering is intolerable. It will never stop. Therefore, I must stop it by this extreme action. And that's, you look at that and go, sure, under a very specific set of circumstances, that might actually make sense. But depression is a liar. Depression is what tells you, it's what makes the suffering feel worse than it actually is. It's what, escalates, elevates, and spreads it. And also the idea that this is it lies at all 3 points of the syllogism. It's not as bad as it feels. It's not as intolerable. It can be tolerable under different circumstances, or the circumstances might change, which gets to the hopelessness part. This will never end. Therefore I must end it. Depression lies at every, so if you kind of can debunk each of them, and that's, there is no silver bullet, magic pill necessarily. Now there are interventions, there's treatments, and there's different stuff, but
when you're in isolation and you've got no out, and this is why a lot of people self-isolate, because in our isolation we can self-justify everything. Mm-hmm. This is just the way the world is. I can't tolerate someone else's opinion on this.
Oh yeah, for sure. So if you can break out of that trap of lies, is basically curing or healing from depression itself. And sometimes it takes a guide through so I love the wizard archetype, because that's, you imagine you're lost in the deep dark forest, and suddenly some old hermit in the rattiest, dirtiest clothes, his beard's scraggly and it's got bird shit in it, and he's got this funny looking hat, and he's got a torch, and he's just like, this way, and he leads you out. And sometimes we never know when we're going to meet that crazy old guy in the woods, and it can be anybody. It doesn't have to be a man in the woods. He doesn't have to look crazy.
It's in a form that you wouldn't otherwise expect.
Yeah, and that's where we get a lot of the mythological representations of trickster gods and other beneficial benefactors of a supernatural nature coming to heroes in different forms and giving them different clues, even tricking them with reverse psychology into making the right decision. All kinds of different stories of how these forces work with it. Something else you said earlier too, I'll just throw this out there because it came back to me. But the idea of that's exactly how I conceive of what we are, is the intersecting point of a meat suit and a spirit. It's like where the soul connects with the physical reality is in here somewhere, and it's more than just neurons firing. It is neurons firing, but it's more than that. It's just one of those things where it's like we are the sum of our parts and more, in a sense. Anyway, that was just
no. I like that, and I want to add to that, because there's a saying, whoever has, more will be given, and whoever doesn't have, what you have gets taken away. Now, I see as sort of spiritual energy. When you're in abundance, you're just getting more and more and more, right? So when this bag of meat lines up with your energy signature and you master that, because everyone's got a connection. I don't like the saying that everyone's special. What everyone has is a startup capital, and how you invest that startup capital is how much you get back. Okay, you might start with 2 cents and you get 4 cents, 8, and then more and more and more. But if you try and protect what you have gets taken away. And I lost my fear of what other people thought of me when I realized my life path was, I see people, their energy signatures, they come into this world, they get covered in meat, and when that energy signature gets returned back to source, you want to return it with interest. Mm-hmm. So my accountability is to, when it goes back to source, I can say I did everything I can to enhance that signature and it's returned with tenfold than what it came in with.
For sure.
So I'm not accountable to you per se. I'm accountable to, the energy that goes back to source from whence it came.
Yeah, and what you were saying there too, I think it's a biblical phrase, and I can't remember.
Oh yeah.
I can't remember if it's called the
Yeah,
Peter
it was a
principle.
parable. It was a parable in the Bible
Exactly.
when a king was going away and he gave all his servants gold coins and said, "Do with what you want." And then when he comes back, the guy who had 10 gold coins said, "Look, I've made another 10." He says, "Great, you can be in charge of 10 cities." And a guy says, "Oh, I've made another 5." He says, "Great, you can be in charge of 5 cities." And then there was one guy, he says, "Look, I just took what you gave me, I buried it, here it is back." He's like, "Are you freaking serious? I gave you something as a gift for you to create more." And so take what that guy has and give it to the guy who's got 10. And the servants were like, "Hang on, he's already got 10. Why are you giving him his?" And that's when he said, "Whoever has, more will be given. Whoever doesn't have, what they have gets taken away."
Yeah, exactly. And then
So energetically speaking, that's what it's like. So, you know, if you're focusing on the 25 cents that got taken, you can spend the next 7 days trying to chase that. And when I say, you know, energy that's taken, someone that's hurt you, pissed you off, an unhealed wound, a part of you that doesn't have peace, you can chase that in another, you know, to try and get that back, or you can move forward and create $1 million each day. So this is where I mentioned earlier, 2 completely different types of people in this world, and they're both you. Okay. There's you that if you don't invest in yourself, you've only got, say, 50 cents worth of energy. And if someone takes 25 cents, that's half of everything you own. So you can't help but want to get that back. A big part of me in my life was getting revenge on certain things that were taken from me, right?
yeah.
You know, but if I wake up and I create an abundance, let's say I've got $1 million and someone takes 25 cents, I'm like, okay, stay there, play with it. You've just missed out on the rest of my life. I'm going to make another $1 million tomorrow. You know, so the idea of revenge in a biblical sense is, Lord, make my enemies dust beneath my feet.
Yeah.
So you don't know you got dust on your feet because it's so small it just doesn't even occur to you. You know, so this helped me lose my sense of wanting to get revenge on people because, you know, if they only took from me because I had nothing. If I try and take from them, I can't get nothing from nothing. I'm just going to end up like them. So I just keep on working on making, you know, myself stronger, making an abundance, and then before you know it, they become very small. So when I'm working with high school students, I show them a Venus flytrap, and they're quite a small little plant, right? And I ask, "Does this scare you?" And they're like, "Nah." And I say, "Well, look, to a fly, this Venus flytrap is absolutely terrifying." Now, this is where we need to start seeing our own unique human abilities. We can improve ourselves. We can develop ourselves. We can make ourselves stronger, more powerful, more peaceful, more present. Okay, so if this fly had a human ability to develop and strengthen itself, the fly could turn into a bird. The bird could turn into a cat. The cat could turn into a lion. Okay, so imagine that lion walking past that Venus flytrap. It would freaking laugh at itself that it ever took that thing seriously. You know, and revenge would just be below it because it's so powerful. It's living the life of a lion.
Oh yeah.
And so this is how I encourage people to come at. It's so great that you've got problems because you're going to turn yourself from a fly into a lion because you're up against this thing and you're going to outgrow it. You're not going to try and, you know, take from something that's trying to take from you. The idea is to, you know, develop, grow, and then you get to a point where it's like, yeah, I am the lion now.
That's probably one of the best ways to conceive of, you know, because we look at things like the, say, biblical or other prohibitions in a way against revenge, and it's like, well, why not? Because revenge is, in a way, it's justice. Or rather, that's one method we would look at and say, okay, there's a possible avenue for justice, and justice is something we should all get. If you've been wronged, that should be rectified in some way, and it's a great way to conceive of it is that seeking revenge, why is it wrong or bad? And it's not always a moral thing. Sometimes it's a practical thing. It's like, man, that's just wasted energy. And that doesn't mean you shouldn't get justice for, like, you've been a victim of a crime, you've had something stolen. There's different things that don't quite qualify as revenge. Revenge is more of an emotional. I want the emotional satisfaction of getting back at someone. But if you look at that and say, you know what, that's a waste of your precious resources. You're going to chase that 25 cents instead of making $1 million. You're going to waste energy that if you put it somewhere else, that problem becomes so far beneath you, you wonder why you even cared at some point. That's
no,
great.
you're right there, Ben. See, and people certainly do need to get the impact of their actions on others. There certainly needs to be justice. But if you think that killing that person is somehow going to put back in what was taken, you'd be sorely mistaken.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Because killing that person or doing whatever punishment, you can do 1,000 punishments, lock them up for 1,000 years. You know, that is not going to put back in what was taken out. We just have this idea that if we can, the idea is, the false idea is if I can physically punish that person somehow, I'll get back what was taken. Do you remember how many pissed off guys are in prison right now? Because they actually fulfilled on that. They got revenge that they thought would work, and they're still pissed off at the person even though they're dead.
Yeah,
you know, there's no, that's a very, it's a misguided idea of, you know, it's up to us to put back in what was taken. But yes, of course, justice needs to be, you know, served, and they do need to get the impact of their actions. And so that, no, good point. I agree with the idea of, we simply, no matter how much you punish the other person, you are not going to put back in what they took from you.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly right. And look at what it cost you. Is it especially with the folks that went to prison? Are you willing to give up the potential to do so much greater stuff? Your whole life is ahead of you. You know, however much of it is left at any age. Then to throw it away for a momentary emotional satisfaction. It's because you look at some of these things and people go, well, why not? Why shouldn't I take revenge? Don't I deserve it? And it's like, well, a lot of these great thinkers have said maybe it's not a great idea, but then sometimes you get it so simple. It's like purely cost benefit analysis, wasted energy. Do something better. There's a recent
Ben, actually, I could break that down even better, because I spent a lot of time thinking about, you know, I was one of those angry dudes that was cooking up revenge plans. I'm just gonna change my seat out, and I'm gonna sit back down. 1 sec.
Sure. Take your time.
I've got one of these, you know, the kneeling chairs.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Good bit of kit, especially if you got a bit of a funny back.
Yeah, I should probably get one of those. I should probably lock my chair too, so I got some lumbar support. There we go. Stretching time.
So here's how I got rid of my plans for revenge. And you got to remember, I got a particular skill set. And
one of my favorite movies.
So what I'm trying to say here is, I had to do the analysis, and part of a person's desire for revenge is they were put in a position of powerlessness. Mm-hmm. Okay. And people who are in positions of power, if they're or, you know, if they're bad managers, if whatever you want to call them, they get really good at taking energy for others to keep others small. Mm-hmm. You know? So the way I saw it was like a spreadsheet, right? And that person had power over me, and they took from me. Okay, but if you look on the scale of things, their potential is limited to how many victims they can find. Okay, mm-hmm. And people that take from others, they usually don't have people staying in their lives, because they'll hang around, then actually this person's no good, then they'll disappear. So they're always rotating the people in their lives, because their potential is relative to how many victims they can find, right?
Oh yeah.
So I remember being a victim of this one particular guy, and that sense of powerlessness had me feeling like, oh, I've got to take back. But then I realized that person took from me because they have no power. It's like trying to get money from a zero bank account. I'm just going to waste energy. So, but that person, you have to realize, on their scale of potential, it's limited to the amount of victims they can find. Mm-hmm. I'm not limited if I invest in myself. And I just keep on getting higher and higher, stronger and stronger, you know, fly to a cat to a lion type stuff. And then you're like, yeah, that that person, I feel like the spirit put that person in my life so I can actually upscale and grow. And I'm quite thankful for that person, because I never would have upscaled and grew from that, being in that position of powerlessness.
For sure.
So
yeah.
you can see how, a-holes in this world are an absolute godsend, because it shows you that you need to invest in yourself, power up, and get past them, because you only need to outgrow these people once, and then you see them for what they are. It's a bit like, again, this is something I do with high school students. I'll show them a little plant, and I'll say, rip a leaf off that, and they'll rip a leaf. And that was easy, wasn't it? Okay. But when this plant grows fully and gets fully big, you could run your car into it and come off second best. So the people that take in this world want to keep you small, want to keep you scared. They'll rip your leaves off now because that's easy for them to do. But if you work on growing, you're going to outgrow these people, and you'll become this big tower of strength, and they're still playing the small game, and you're untouchable. So that's what dispelled my desire for revenge, because I saw that it would impact on my potential, and I could use it to grow my potential and grow past them. Because I'm human too. I could have become like that person and learn how to get really good at taking from others. That was very much within me. So seeing that and seeing the benefit to being in a position of powerlessness, and then investing in me, before you know it, you've just outgrown them.
Absolutely. Yeah. That gets to, so two things. One is, I keep going back to this. I keep seeing this idea of like, there was a joke. What was it? Kind of a joke, kind of a riddle, but like if I offered you, $100,000 for a month's work, or I could pay you a penny on day one, 2 pennies on day 2, 4 pennies on day 3, and it doubles. Which would you prefer? And people who don't understand compound interest or exponential growth, doubling every, I think by, what is it, day 7, 8, 9, or 15 or something, you're already well over 100,000. By the end of the month, you got $1 million. And it's that kind of it's like a compound interest of the soul, like investing in yourself is very, very much that. But then that ties into another thing of like, I'm always trying to figure out like, what do our stories, mythologies, fairy tales tell us about the world? And it made me think of vampires. I think you said like energy vampire, or maybe I thought of it when you said something.
Yeah, but people that don't have their own life force, so they suck it out of others.
Yeah. Or that there's what am I trying to say? If we think of our innate essence, whatever it is, as our investment capital, and then there's the profit, we can grow the abundance on top of it. That is one, I think that's the difference between, in some broad strokes, good and evil, is like good people improve themselves, increase their abundance, have lots of energy to share. And then there's evil, which feeds on the startup capital, the essence of
I've been
people.
hurt, so I'm going to take from others.
Yeah, and there's lots of justifications.
As opposed to I've been hurt, I'm going to build myself up and build others up.
Or I think this path is just easier and I'm lazy and I don't care. I mean, there's a lot of different ways that people fall into the trap.
Oh yeah,
I'm owed justice. I'm gonna victimize these people because I was a victim, and this is just how the world works. A lot of excuses we tell ourselves. But I think that's in it. So it struck me that in mythological terms, it's kind of like a functional explanation of good and evil, how it operates in the world.
They're talking about the dynamics of energy, mythologically speaking. They're talking about things that are, and this is what I was excited about your podcast, because dreams go deeper than words can explain, right? And as much, I'm going to sneeze. Hang on.
Oh, go right ahead. That was something I was going to mention earlier. I'll just throw in while you're bringing it up. That one reason that sleep is so essential is that we need to dream. It's not optional. And if stuff is interrupting your ability to dream, that can be as bad as not sleeping well. Well, we said I didn't sleep well, and so you wake up the next day and you're tired still. Our one of the ways I look at this is, why where do dreams come from? We have this broad, giant subterranean lake of every thought and feeling and literally every physical sensation we've ever experienced, even the ones that didn't register on our conscious awareness. That's why it's so, they call it unconscious or the subconscious. It's all in there. And part of what dreams are is problem solving, bringing that stuff up to have a look at it. But part of the reason for that is that, and I liken it to the analogy of defragging a hard drive. You've got all this data and the computer just puts it as fast as it can anywhere. Every once in a while, you got to say, let's take all this stuff over here and put it in a smaller pile over here so we can make room for some other stuff. You defrag that hard drive so you can install new programs, have new thoughts. And if you don't do that, if you don't let your brain defragment in sleep through the process of dreams, you're in for a world of hurt. So there's one comment I was going to throw in there way back.
No, totally get that. And as you were saying that, something was coming to me. And something that a lot of psychologists haven't figured out yet is that words only go so deep, and the trauma goes deeper than words can reach. You know, it's like trying to hit a target at 200 meters, but you've got a cap gun that only shoots 2.
Yeah.
You know, and if you think about us as living organisms, you know, before we were sentient, before we were putting paintings on rock walls, you know, we were breathing and feeling. This body was always aware of what's going on. Before we were speaking, we were breathing and feeling. And what I see is dreams help us access the oldest parts of us and, you know, gets us past our own limited thoughts and words.
Definitely. Yeah, no, I think that is it too. And what the way I've described it in the recent past is it appears that what we conceptualize as dreams, that is the experience that makes it out to our conscious observation so we can reflect on it. That experience is actually closer to what our thoughts actually are. We don't tend to think in words as much as we do images, sensations, emotions. Then basically, I would say what the function of consciousness is to then translate those things into communicable ideas that we can then reflect on that level and then also tell other people. I'm not explaining this very well, and I think I'm getting some of it wrong.
No, I get it. I mean, if I'm listening to you correctly, you know, our sentient mind is the newcomer on the block. It's still trying to figure stuff out. Our old systems, feelings, breathing, you know, all that really deep stuff, that goes, it's older than our words, it's older than our brain. I'm sure at some point in the distant future, the brain will figure it out and will integrate. But right now, it's like the brain's trying to justify its existence.
Yeah. Well, it's
and
almost,
the words are too.
Well, they've said this before, and whether it's technically true or merely metaphorical, I think it is true. It's like we have 3 brains, and they talk about the lizard brain, the mammal brain, and then the human brain. And that's where we get, you know, the automatic stuff, lizard brain or whatever, the mammal brain, which, you know, we think of like lower animals, and then the human brain as a conscious self-awareness, reflection, negotiating with the future, all kinds of different stuff. So the blessing and the curse of being human is that we have access to the human brain, but we still got to live with the animal brain and the lizard brain and integrate that somehow. And then that is actually where a lot of benefit can be found in the dream analysis process, is that it gives your conscious mind access to those deeper levels, so you can.
It gives it I see a canvas to paint on.
Mm-hmm. It's very good analogy. Is that when we go to bed at night, we have a bit of a blank canvas, and it's like, well, what am I going to think about today? Now, sometimes we can program that a little bit, and definitely we accidentally program it because we're obsessed or worried or fearful or anticipatory of some specific things. And then because our focus and our emotions are wrapped up in a particular idea, because we've been living with it or in anticipation of it, good or bad, in our physical waking life, it comes into the dreams and we go, okay, what's going to happen? What do I want to happen? What do I think is most likely to happen? If this were to go badly, how could I prevent it? If I wanted this to go well, what could I do? Do I see, and sometimes our worries are as simple as, do I see myself as clearly as I possibly could? And we just show ourselves little pieces of ourselves. So many different directions dreams go. How do I pick a direction? I don't know. I have no idea how I do what I do. And I have no idea if it's always correct. I like to tell people the answers are not in me because it's not my dream. I'm the guy you invite into your mind to stand behind your shoulder and shine a flashlight around going, do you see what I see? What if we look at it from a different angle? And then you are the ultimate authority. I'm just a guest.
Well, I think what you're doing there ultimately is breaking someone's isolation. And once their isolation's broken, all their higher thinking can kick in.
It's a big deal.
Any psychologist will say 90% of their job is rapport. Okay. And once some mammal doesn't feel like they're not alone anymore, higher executive function kicks in. I remember getting very angry to the point, really angry when we're about to go into this ambush in Afghanistan. It was a RPG ambush, rocket propelled grenade ambush. Yeah. When this happens, we're in a vehicle convoy. And so all the heavily armored vehicles go down to the rear of the convoy because they're the ones that can take the hit, because it's classically in an ambush situation, the rear vehicles always attack because it's least defended. Okay. And in the shakeout and rush, because it's at night time when this was happening, this armored vehicle cut us off and we were just in like a 4-wheel drive with the roof cut off. And I remember my vehicle commander said, "Fellas, if this goes the way I think it will, it's been an honor serving with you."
Oh shit, that's good news.
And in that state, I was so fucking angry because I'd done plenty of ramp ceremonies where you're carrying your mate down the ramp of the airplane with the Australian flag over it, and I saw the picture of me being carried down the airplane ramp, wife and kids crying to one side, and I was so angry. And I couldn't think. I could not think in that state of emotional isolation, But then I asked myself a question which pretty much changed the rest of my life, Ben. I said, "Tim, who do you know that has done this before?" And I drew another blank. I'm like, I don't know anyone who's done this before. But then I started thinking outside my own timeline. And in Australia, we have a group of men that served in the World Wars called the Anzacs. And a particularly important battle for us was Gallipoli. And these men were dropped on at the wrong time on the wrong beach, and they were had everything going against them, and they were getting mowed down, but they kept moving forward. Even though there was an enemy waiting for them, even though they knew that it was certain death, they kept moving forward. And in my state of disconnect, I'm like, wow, yeah, the Anzac, I do know somebody, those Anzacs, And as much as that was over 100 years ago, and most of those guys are dead, it was like this portal in time opened up, and they reached through it. And like our saying in Australia, especially on Anzac Day, is "lest we forget." There was so much sacrifice. We say "lest we forget." It was like these Anzacs came through this portal, poked me in the chest, and said, "Tim, lest you forget. Lest you forget the power inside of you. Lest you forget the power of looking after your mates."
Yeah, that's pretty powerful too. That's a powerful thing that we can have from studying history, is realizing that can help to decrease isolation. I'm not the first person that's ever been through this. I probably won't be the last. And some people made it, some people didn't, but I'm not alone. Yeah.
If you want to know what immortality is, you keep moving forward through things that are up against you. Because when people think back on it, you don't even have to be in the room. Just the thought of these guys, they broke my isolation. And then literally at that moment, Ben, it was like the nighttime turned into day. My whole body felt illuminated. And then guess what happened? My higher functioning started kicking in. I'm like, okay, we're about to heal. You know, what do I know right now? RPGs self-destruct at 1,500 meters, so they're probably going to be shooting us between 800 to 1,100 meters. So, and I worked out the arcs. You know, like, you know, if you're shooting from RPGs, that arc is, you know, if you do the, you know, and I worked out at our speed of going, you know, about 25 to 35 Ks an hour, we're probably going to be in the kill box for between, you know, 3 to 7 minutes. Okay. And I'm like, righto, well, and then something pretty cool happened. I literally saw my whole circulatory system jump out of my body, and I observed it's just a bunch of pipes, okay? And I'm like, well, all I need to do to survive the next 3 to 5 minutes is keep positive pressure to my brain, because I saw the brain, you know, at the top and all the pipes running down through my legs. And then I pulled that back inside my body, and I said, look, I can lose an arm, that's fine. I'll just hose clamp it. That'll still keep the positive pressure, because I was on the 50 cal machine gun, so it was very important for me to keep functioning. And so I put 2 tourniquets on my chest. And I'm like, right. And even if I bleed out and die, my mates are going to be able to put a bag of saline into me to get me back in there. So if you've ever done that trust activity where you fold your hands and close your eyes and fall back into someone's arms, I was trusting the trust in that vehicle. You know, I could fall into the gates of hell and they would hold me back from it. Wow. And then once I was sorted with inside myself, I'm like, right, what do I need to be ready for to help the other guys too? So you can see how my circle of awareness and cerebral power went from I'm fucking angry and fuck that guy, you know, I'm thinking about my own death, to then, okay, how do I handle me? What's going on here? I understand that. And then I've got to be of service to others in case they get blown out. And then something really cool, one of the coolest things that ever happened, he said, you know what? They might find my body in 5 minutes' time. But you know what they're not going to find? Magazines full of bullets. I'm emptying all ammunition on this one. And then I'm like, you know, that's not a bad way to live. Yeah. You know, my magazines contain simple bullets, but my mind contains ideas, hopes, and dreams. Wouldn't it be a greater pity to die with all those, you know, bullets in your head not fired?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
You know, and then I'm like, fucking bring it on.
Yeah.
That's great too. And you know, yeah.
There was a fantastic, what you described is actually, okay, so I'm going to walk through it a little bit. So, sometimes people would come to Carl Jung and you know, as a client, and he would say, you know, do you have any dreams? And they'd say, no, I can't remember any. And he'd say, well, let's create a dream together. Let's make a daydream. Let's talk about stuff and then describe to me the images, the experiences that come to mind naturally, and we'll analyze that like a dream. So what you had was exactly that kind of experience. It seems like you had an epiphany that came to you visually. You had a vision appear to you of this circulatory system. You had a and that vision, as many dreams do, came with its own understanding. It was here's the meaning. The meaning is present in the thing itself. I'm worried I'm going to die. Well, what does it mean to die? It means the blood stops going to my brain. Now, wait a minute. I can take practical steps. I see my circulatory system, and all of this in a way coping with the fear of death, but also getting out of fear and into the practicality of like, well, what does it mean to die? It means physically blood stops flowing to the brain. You have a vision of your circulatory system, and this vision informs your, not informs, but represents an epiphany in a way of like, look, there's things I can do to mitigate this, but then also radical acceptance at the same time of like, I might not make it, but there's other definitions of win condition. Like you're familiar with that phrase, and folks in the audience, you know, what is our win condition for this operation? How do we know we've done the job and we can get the hell out? Well, for you, the win condition was I'm going to survive as long as I can. I'm going to empty all my goddamn ammo, fighting as hard as I can to stay alive and to keep my friends alive. And if my friends are still alive, they can save me. But even if they don't, they're still alive. And I fought as hard as I could. All of that, bam, in this moment, and just evaporates the let's see, fight, flight, and feel was your book there too. So I think that probably came out of this experience in part, or was that the genesis?
Oh, no, very much so.
Yeah.
But also, you know, post service when you know, but if You just said something there that I wanted to speak to, because you think as a soldier I'd get used to fear, and the fact was I never did.
Not exactly.
But being exposed to it so often, you got a really good understanding of the inner workings of fear. And what I discovered, and I just want to offer this, is I discovered fear actually has a goal, and fear's goal isn't to scare you; it's actually to make you immobile, to stop you even trying, to stop you. You might think you might want to do something, but fear goes, no, I'm not even going to take any actions. Okay, so when you understand that the ultimate goal of fear is inaction, you counter fear not with love, you counter fear with action. Taking action dispels fear, and the way I explain it, there is a fear-shaped footprint filled with water, okay? And the second you step in that is the second the fear disappears.
Yeah.
You can justifiably say beforehand, yes, that's real. But the second you take that action is the second it disappears. And so that's why before you do anything, there's an amount of nerves. There's a part of you trying to talk you out of it, because and what fear does is saying, if you are to move forward into this situation, you are going to die. And that's actually a truthful statement, because part of you does have to die for you to step into action. All those parts of you that are restricting you, they scream the loudest before they die. And so taking actions is what I found to absolutely counter fear. Now, one action that I used to take that used to dispel my fear was singing. So when we're going through this ambush alley and I'm like, we're going to get fucked up right now, I would start singing, because singing is an action, and it's also a breathwork technique.
Oh, for sure. Bust out some rousing waltzing Matilda, right? Why not? Anything. The sillier the better sometimes.
Well, look, and the point was, those once you understand that his ultimate goal is, immobilization, then it's the taking actions that is gonna all of a sudden it just disappears. And then you start using those that as an inner compass. So if there's a part of you saying, no, don't do that, that's terrible, that's your system knowing that taking that action, something very powerful is going to happen. Something very powerful is going to happen, because when you become powerful, all those doubts, they die, and they scream the loudest before they die. So, before, I've been doing, fitness for 30 plus years. Before I do some physical activity, there's always a part of me going, no, don't do it, put it off. But I'm like, there's a part of me that knows that I'm about to be powerful, and they're trying to fight for their survival right now. See how that works?
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the greatest formulations I've heard in recent years is, someone explained the idea that, that we can let our ideas die instead of ourselves. We can think through problems, or we can let pieces of ourselves die to save the rest of us, or so the rest of us can, the rest of what we are can thrive. There's something really powerful in that. Well, then that's the human part of the brain that developed most recently. That idea that, wow, I can imagine a bunch of scenarios. I don't have to test each one. I can just use my logic to say that looks like it's a bad idea. That looks like it might work, but I need this element to it. And what we have to do is get rid of let all the things that are wrong or inaccurate or unhelpful die in order to make progress. Otherwise, it may be lots of metaphors. You got the idea of a ball and chain dragging you back. It's like, well, I mean, you can put the effort into dragging it, or you can put the effort into cutting yourself loose from it, so you don't have to drag it anymore and leave it behind. I knew we were going to talk for a long time. We are well over an hour of interview portion, but I want to get to the dream stuff so we don't cheat you out of the full experience for that. Because we've been going so long.
Let me just dose up on my cacao here.
Actually, no, that's perfect. Do you mind if we take and I'll cut it out? We'll take like maybe a 10-minute break, and I'll go let the cat out and stretch my legs.
Benjamin the Dream Wizard wants to help you pierce the veil of night and shine the light of understanding upon the mystery of dreams. Every episode of his Dreamscapes program features real dreamers gifted with rare insight into their nocturnal visions. New Dreamscapes episodes appear every week on YouTube, Rumble, Odyssey, and other video hosting platforms, as well as free audiobooks exploring the psychological principles which inform our dream experience, and much, much more. To join the Wizard as a guest, reach out across more than a dozen social media platforms and through the contact page at BenjaminTheDreamWizard.com, where you will also find the Wizard's growing catalog of historical dream literature available on Amazon, documenting the wisdom and wonder of exploration into the world of dreams over the past 2,000 years. That's Benjamin the Dream Wizard on YouTube and at BenjaminTheDreamWizard.com.
Hey, my man.
Heyo, I see you. I hear you.
Sorry to keep you waiting. Were you waiting long?
Oh, no, a couple of minutes. I was playing fetch with the cat, of course.
Oh, nice. No worries.
That would be
I was playing fetch with the. Actually, I took my dog for a quick walk. Actually.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, I stepped out.
I
took myself for a walk, stretched my legs. I'm going to get a deep vein thrombosis one of these days. Spend too much time sitting here. I'm editing books, editing videos, doing interviews, playing video games.
Actually,
a lot of sedentary work.
Well, let me show you something. A good bit of kit.
Sure.
See these things?
Oh yeah.
That's a calf guard. So they return the blood a whole lot more easily because your foot's basically an S bend for your circulatory system.
Mm-hmm.
So these things here, good bit of kit.
Nice. Equivalent of like compression socks.
Yeah, compression socks, pretty much.
Nice.
Yeah, but
Very
I was
cool.
just aside. You played medieval computer games.
Oh yeah.
You recognize that?
Your screen's a little grainy, but it looks to me it's either a cutlass or a mace. I can't tell.
Yeah, well done. Good pick. It is a mace.
Okay.
Good pick. Yeah. So that's everyone's heard of kettlebells. Well, this is like a kettlebell on a stick, and you throw it around the place.
Oh yeah, I think I've seen that.
The best full body workout you'll ever do.
Oh yeah, engages the core. Let me tell you, because you're swinging
I'll
that thing around, you got to keep yourself balanced and stable.
Yeah, so I've got this little timer on my bench, so it beeps every 20 or 30 minutes, and so then I'll take myself away from my desk, do a few little bits of activity, and then sit back down.
That's good. I should do that more often. I am much wiser than my will allows in terms of like, oh, I know I should be doing all kinds of things. I just don't. And I laugh at myself because otherwise I'd be like, I would have to feel bad that I don't do it. But I'm feeling more and more inclined lately. Like, I got to get up and move around more. I just do. I just need to. So I'm going to make it happen.
And you really don't need to do much. And this is in 30 years of fitness, the best advice I can give people is think of what you want to do. You don't have to do much. You just need to do it regularly, right? Mm-hmm. So even if you just the bell goes off, every 20 minutes, and you just stand up and do 5 squats, and then sit back down.
Oh
so
yeah.
In an hour, you're doing 15 squats over 8 hours. And then you slowly work with what's comfortable.
Absolutely.
And we can do what's comfortable and easy a lot longer than we can do what's hard and uncomfortable.
Now this guy's making lovey eyes at me. He's like, "You're gonna pet me, right?" I'm like, "No, not right now. Now you got to move." Well, I don't want to, like I was saying earlier, I don't want to cheat you out of the dream experience. I'm actually running out of time myself. I've got just less than an hour. Yep. I don't know if it's going to take us the full time to get through the dream, but I don't want to.
All right, let's do it. I
don't want to run you out of time. So as per my usual process, I just shut up and listen. Step one, always shut up and listen. Our friend Tim here is going to tell us his dream as he experienced it, beginning to end, like a story, and then we're going to talk about it and see if we can figure it out. So, I am ready when you are.
Sure, no worries. So this was I guess possibly all dreams are interesting, but I hadn't dreamt about this particular guy in a long time. So this guy was closer to me than a brother. He became very successful in business. But then he started sort of, I guess one would say, betraying the trust of those people closest to him. I spent a lot of time and resources sort of helping him as a friend. But then he just within one email, he just burnt me, right? And I had a dream about him recently, and the dream was interesting. There was a race down. He lives about an hour away from where I live, and there was a race, like a Formula One race on down in his part of the area, and I was putting 2 cars into that race, 2 Formula One cars, and he was putting 2 Formula One cars into that race. And I had a bit of sort of heated discussion with my team about the stickers and the colours on my Formula One race cars, and there was 2 of them, right? And then the race comes, and I was supposed to be driving one of the 2 race cars, and so was my friend, but we were just sort of not arguing, but just nitpicking each other as we watched these cars race around the track. And the cars, when they took a corner really fast, it was, again, when they took the corner really fast, I could see Tupperware and Lego just falling out of them when they took the corners, and the track was getting filled up with this Tupperware and Lego. Okay. That's the length and depth of that dream.
Fantastic. And look at he found the one area I wasn't writing on, or I got to the very bottom. I'm making little notes, and he's like, I can lay on all the rest of it. No, you can't. You got to get him. And then I get him. You can see him or maybe you can't. There's a blanket here. I put a blanket out for him. Lay on the blanket, buddy. Watch this. He won't stay there. He won't stay there. You're killing me. Here. How about this? Come lay over here. Lay on everything but the note-taking part. Okay, so that is step 1. Shut up and listen. Get those details. I wrote down some key phrases that I'm probably not going to be able to remember well. So what is my process? Well, it varies each time. Sometimes I get a clearer picture and I've got some ideas right away. I had some ideas, but I want to tease them out as we go and confirm them. I'm always trying to refine my process. So enough talking about the process. Let's do the process. Step 2 is we just go back through it again, and we start helping me see it through your eyes a little bit better. So you're at a racetrack in his geographical
location.
area.
Geographical
Gotcha.
area, yep.
So we've got, let me do this first. We've got characters, objects, settings, behaviors. We've got all this kind of stuff going on. And that's consistent to any story we tell. Where is it? Who does it involve? What's the action? It's very interesting how our dreams like to tell a story, and it's almost universal that they do. I mean, sometimes it's no more than just a thought process, and we identify the thoughts through the process to their conclusion, but very often, most often, almost universally, it's a story. There's something happening. There's some drama. So you've got you and your friend. You've got not one race car each. You've got 4. Two on each. You've got a team with you. You were meant to be driving one of the cars. This was some of the action, as was your friend, but neither one of you were actually driving. You were distanced and observing. There's the racetrack is an object or setting. The location where your friend lives being a setting. The results of the race, the cornering, and then the expulsion or how would you describe what adjective or word would you, or verb would you give
it
to
would just naturally fall out of these cars,
So
and I'm
just
like,
falling
it's just
out.
cluttering up the track, with all
Gotcha.
this Tupperware and Lego.
Gotcha. And so then we've got the action of the falling out of the which is an interesting. Let's put that in. because that's an interesting turn of phrase too. We have a falling out with friends, in a way, or partners. It's a universal term, not universal necessarily, but a very a turn of phrase for the end of a friendship in a way. Well, we had a falling out. Very interesting. Does that mean anything? I don't know, but those were the words, so we put that on the table. And the idea that the action of the falling out, the specific objects that were falling out, and then, as you just said there, and I think that's fantastic, it ended up cluttering the track. It's like it wasn't inconsequential. It was actually something negative, detrimental to the process. I'll just write that down real quick on the other page.
It's something that's not supposed to happen, and it didn't make any sense.
Yeah. Well, dreams are often like that. There's two different ways that things like this is why this process takes so long. I have all these thoughts, and I like to explain them as we go because it helps clarify my thoughts. It's a very common occurrence that no matter how bizarre a dream is, we could wake up from it, and often do, with the experience that while we were dreaming, none of that was strange at all. And then sometimes we experience the feeling of events in a dream being strange. And when that does occur, that means something different from the being unaware of how bizarre something is in a dream. Like if we just accept it as normal, it means one thing. But if we identify it in the dream, if we have the dream, the kind of in-dream experience of something being strange, and then that means something else. That's a shade of
it definitely seemed like it didn't seem strange. It was just something that I observed happening. It was just I'm observing Tupperware and Lego falling out of the yeah.
So in the dream, it didn't feel strange necessarily, but afterwards you look back on it going, well, that doesn't make any sense.
Like,
okay.
Well, yeah, because I try to figure it out with my own conscious thoughts. I'm like, yeah, what?
Of course. Why now the cars weren't made of Legos? Not that you knew of. And Tupperware? What does that even mean? Well, those two things are very, what came to my mind immediately with those. Well, we're going to get there. We haven't even started in a way. This is all like pre-conceptualizing. Tupperware tends to be where we store things, and Legos is what we build things out of. So it's shedding. Whoops! As I throw my pen, he's gonna go chase my pen. I have more pens. He can have that one. Here we go. Go get it. No, he doesn't. Now he wants the new pen. You said, I can kind of see that. So it means that at least those top level understandings of what those objects are resonates with you to some degree. Now, why, we don't know yet, but like I said, we're going to get there. A lot of times almost always the setting in which something occurs is meaningful to the thing. So this wasn't counterfactuals. This wasn't a racetrack in France, and you had both traveled a long distance to get there. This was not a racetrack in your neighborhood. It's a racetrack in his neighborhood. So we're starting, and not only that, the things you said about him was that, this was someone you were very close to. It was like more than a brother to you. And in a way, falling out, if we keep circulating that idea a little bit, that you had with him was he ended up demonstrating, some act of betrayal. He turned against people that were, we were talking about revenge and justice earlier. This is an unjust situation. He had no reason to do this to people. This was purely some fault or failure of his character. So you've brought him back into your dream as an icon of that type of person or situation, if that makes sense.
Yep.
Yeah. Racetrack.
I've done the work to, reconcile and get the healing. So I'm no longer, hanging on to anything. And that process of healing was a process of its own. But I could confidently say, the old thing of just investing in me for years. I'm like, this is unfair. For this to happen. But now it's like, well, I don't want to say dust beneath my feet. Like I don't like the person or send him hate, but it's dust beneath my feet in the way that I'm playing a much bigger game than anything that was lost at the time. So it's interesting that it just sort of popped up. So when I mentioned the guy's name and I give the backstory, I didn't give the front story of, it did create that time of healing and, getting my power back as well.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Yeah. So there's a lot of different angles that this could be coming from. There's, so very typically we look at, I keep saying that, but whatever. I got my words on loop today. It's very common that we have a dream of a particular type with a particular person, particular actions, because there's something in our waking life that reminds us of that. It's like, oh, am I experiencing this again? And maybe we are, maybe we aren't, but there's enough similarity or resonance between some current event and some past event that past event comes back to memory. We smell, we walk into a friend's house and we go, oh, it smells like my grandmother's kitchen. And then, whoa, suddenly you're thinking about your grandmother and then a particular Christmas dinner you had the last time you saw her, and all these thoughts cast. So it happens that way with, okay, I'm dealing with the situation. What does this remind me of? Oh, why am I thinking of this friend that was really close and committed perhaps the worst offense, a betrayal of people that were closest to him, and burned me in an email and was not good people. Why am I thinking of someone in that context? What's going on in my life that brings that back? Now, usually that's a question we get down to at the very end, but I can throw it out at any time saying it's generally what I'm angling toward. So if you think of the time frame that this dream occurred, does anything come to mind in terms of a situation you were going through where you needed to consider whether you could trust someone, or you'd just been through a betrayal that was very obvious and you're like, God, here we go again?
Well, I guess one could say that I'm mobilizing my team to perform. And there is a specter of the people that I'm going to be interacting with potentially taking advantage of that, because I felt like I was taking advantage of when I first interacted with this person. And
Gotcha.
now I'm in a position where I've built myself back up. I'm in a position of abundance, and I'm ready to be generous with the world again. Hence, Breathwork in Bed app company, breathing, blah, blah, blah. And so, now that I look at it, there's that specter of the last time I put myself out there, that it was taken advantage of by people who play that game very well.
Gotcha. Good deal. So we're definitely onto something looking at it from that perspective. It brings to mind. So what do we got here? What I don't want to do is, okay, I'm going to back up. This is, I start 6 sentences and then I realize I need to go back and start over
I get it.
again.
You're downloading quicker than your mouth can keep up. I'm just going to get my share.
No, please go ahead. Do anything you need to. What some people might bring to me is a concern that, Ben, I had a dream, and in this dream I stabbed my dog. Yes, that's my real life dog. Yes, I love that dog and I would never hurt it. And in the dream I felt terrible. What does it mean? And I say the number one thing it does not mean is that in real life you desire to stab your dog. You absolutely do not. So that's not what this dream is about. It's very rarely that direct. So why am I saying that? You may have been... Well, okay, what do I think is most likely? I don't know or don't believe or would not necessarily suggest that you were looking at any particular individual wondering, can I trust him? Maybe that's the case, but I would look at it as what it seems to me is more along the ideas of, I am about to make myself vulnerable. What happens when someone is vulnerable? They could be taken advantage of. I'm going to compare that, or this calls to mind the last time I made myself vulnerable in a way that was taken advantage of. And then, so that forms and that's just the beginning of the dream. Why this friend? Why in his neighborhood, kind of where he lives? When we think of that as, why would you set something where someone lives? Because it says something about them. It's their neighborhood. It's their sphere of influence. It's, it's like, And in the dream, you don't.
You know what? Yeah,
Go ahead.
his sphere of influence is very successful. You know, and I'm wanting to play on the same track as successful, businesses.
Yeah. Not only that, but it's also there's an advantage to home turf in a way. You're going to race on his ground. And that's a very, very. Stop me anytime and say that does or does not resonate.
Yeah, no. I could be giving away my power in the way that I have to.
Oops.
I could be giving away my power in the way that it's not something I own. It's something I need acceptance from others to be able to own.
Very well. It very well could be. This could be, and that's fantastic. If you have those thoughts, blurt them out and interrupt me. I just ramble till something clicks in you. If we run with that a little bit, there is something to the concept. So you may not see, what am I trying to say? Sometimes we think of, okay, I'm decided this is exactly what it is. Now I'm going to play out a what if thought experiment. Sometimes we're not sure what it is, so we give ourselves a what if to consider that is not based on a clear decision. It's just based on a what if that makes sense. There's a certainty or an uncertainty to things. So that's two ways of looking at it here is there's something metaphorically true about entering a playing field where someone else has demonstrated past competence as attending the racetrack in their neighborhood. But it can also be more metaphorical of saying, I'm attempting to do a category of behavior in which other people have demonstrated dominance or competence. And I'm wondering if I'm going to be able to compete.
No, that drops because it's not just someone else's. It's the lack of, like, I'm the only person in my family that is wanting to be successful below, I guess, minimum wage. And not to speak poorly of my parents or my upbringing. My folks worked in some very low socioeconomic circumstances. They worked with the Australian Aboriginals, and they would help and be generous, and they almost associated having more money than minimum wage as something bad,
Gotcha. Yeah.
and there was a real scarcity around finances for them, and so for me to step into a realm that shatters the patriarchal mold of making more money than minimum wage, creating a successful business. I grew up seeing my parents always being of service to others, really humble, and really sacrificing too. So the idea of being successful and high speed potentially is not something I've ever physically experienced in a financial sense before.
Absolutely, yeah, and that's good. There's a constellation of thoughts or ideas that we could attribute or link to the idea of, say, Formula One racing or even stock car, funny car, but just any kind of racing. There's let's see, what am I trying to say? Counterfactuals. It's different than we were playing a game of dice or dominoes. It's different than we were running a foot race. It's different than we were sailing around the globe. Each of those says something a little bit different.
Yeah, this is the top of the line performance vehicle.
Yeah,
and us as they get.
A lot of it. So what are we trying to tease out? We're trying to say something about the nature of needing to see yourself in this process resonates with the idea of that you have about car racing specifically, and
it's in someone else's neighborhood, not my own.
Someone else's neighborhood, yeah. But the idea that these cars they drive very fast, and it can be very dangerous, and they are high performance machines. They need to work well, consistently, at a high quality, for many, many laps. And part of it is the stress test of it all as well. These are hundreds of laps around this race, and the smallest of mechanical failures or driver error can cause a wreck, or at least it causes you to fall behind in the pack. And so there's all these racing metaphors that go ahead.
Well, the other thing that stood out to me, Ben, was you've got these performance vehicles about to head down the coast, and I'm arguing about what kind of stickers need to be on them, you know? And I've, you know, when I've created the Breathwork in Bed app, I freak the hell out when a particular window doesn't open up, or the customer journey's a little bit out. You know, like I'm thinking this is like a critical error. You know, I mean, you know, the creation of the Breathwork in Bed app, it works, but like any car, you've built it. But then when you take it out on the track, you find these little faults, and I'm sort of catastrophizing about all these. I'm currently catastrophizing about all these little things that I think are like huge, but they may or may not be that impactful. They're just up in my head, not actually impacting the performance of the intention.
Yeah. And then there's, you know, what's falling out around the turns is this Tupperware and Legos. So we want to keep that idea in mind. I'm not sure if we're there yet in terms of saying what those really mean, but what came to my mind while you were describing you're obsessing over stickers, you say, and the word that came into my mind was cosmetics. And that is to say, not that cosmetics isn't important, but that there's two ways to look at it. One is you don't want something that's ugly. You want it to be visually appealing, and you know, and not even just visually, aesthetically, like all the different sensations, the sound, the smell, touch, taste.
I could be more worried about what other people perceive me as. And
that's the other thing too, is exterior appearance, and that's. Sometimes we go, oh, don't worry, don't sweat that small stuff necessarily. But if you're making, you know, so, okay, I went from stickers to cosmetics, and I thought, okay, apps need an icon. An icon should be representative but of the application itself, but it should also be visually appealing. It should make people want to click on it. It should be easy to find in the in your list of apps on your saved on your phone or your tablet. There's a lot of practical considerations where you, as a designer of a product, cannot ignore aesthetics because it matters to the customer. So there is validity. So this is where I was saying before, is like a lot of people poo-poo and like, oh, who cares why get hung up over appearances? Well, sometimes they matter. Sometimes they do. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they do. And to a customer, appearance is going to matter to a certain degree. So that's not an invalid concern. You know, it might be a less valid concern if you're worried about the judgment of others in a different context where maybe their opinion doesn't matter. Okay, now the cosmetics are less of an issue, but this is more, you've got something you care about. You've got a goal you want to accomplish. And so you put thought based on, you know, the desired goal. If you take it seriously, you have to put the right amount of effort in to make it successful. Or what the hell are you doing? Why are you bothering if you're not going to take it seriously? It's like, if you'd rather just fail, then just don't. Why even waste the effort? You know. So all this to say, I'm validating the idea that maybe we don't want to look at arguing over the stickers on the car as something that is not important, but almost, it's hard to say how important is it, but in some ways it can be as important as does the car. Well,
it's important as how much energy I'm wasting on it as well.
That's true. If you that could be the thing too, is like, you can't ignore aesthetics. You can't put too much emphasis on it either, because that's also a waste of time. So there is that element going there, but, okay, we haven't even like really gone through we're going through discrete elements. None of this is wrong. None of this is out of order, because there is no order. This is just how we do it. We just talk and things fall into place. But what I was thinking is, we haven't even really gone through the dream in terms of like step by step. So you're at this racetrack, and in terms of the sequence of the dream, like the cars weren't racing initially. You were having a different experience. You were there discussing with your team, and you were observing that there were two sets of two cars, you know, each.
Well, I didn't observe it. We were planning the trip to bring these cars down the coast, and I was discussing, the stickers and the colours, and I was aware that there was 2 cars being entered into from a previous friend. Then once, we went down the coast, I sort of suddenly appeared, and this race course, and I was in the track was around the outside, and I was actually underneath a building. Underneath the building, you got those foundations coming down. We're in this under area with this building on top of us, all these sort of pillars around us, and I could see the cars racing around the outside as the Lego and Tupperware was falling out, and I'm talking to my previous friend, and we're like, weren't you supposed to be driving? Weren't you supposed to be driving? And we're just sort of nitpicking each other a bit.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So, okay. So the more we discuss it, I'm getting a better vision. I didn't have any idea. What I saw was almost the one racetrack that's like an oval, almost, where there's nothing but grass in the middle and the pits are off to the side. But you've actually got a different experience of this Dream. So this is why I asked.
So there's plenty of wines in it, and I could see one section of it, but it was I was standing underneath this. It's like when they have the racetrack going through a city. Like some places have races and they've got to close the city down or whatever, or that particular part, so they can use it. It was like that. And we were underneath a building as part of the city, and the race cars were zipping around in that space.
So you had your private garage, so to speak, almost in an underground parking garage in a way.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Very interesting. There no sense of what the building was.
It was just like an office building stacked on top of us, and it was just like those generic thick pylons that come down into the car park.
For sure.
And you could sort of see, through there when the cars were going past and all that as well.
Yeah, that's an interesting metaphorical symbolism, perhaps, for a startup company. Is like, well, where do you start? You begin at the beginning. You start in the basement. You start at the bottom level, the ground floor, in a way, and you work your way up. So you're underneath the building, trying to get these cars racing. But before I forget about it, there were actually, it seemed like at least 2 sections of the Dream. One perhaps shorter than the other, but initially you weren't just at the racetrack. That actually came second. There was the planning and the preparation and the travel. You're going down the coast with the cars, and you're having this discussion with your team en route.
Before we went down there, so we're in my current location. Before we drove an hour down the coast, we were had the cars ready. I was sort of nitpicking about the stickers and the colors on them, and then you blink, and then we're underneath this office building with these cars going around the outside, really sharp turns and all that sort of stuff. Very much a city sort of metropolitan kind of feel to it.
Gotcha. Do you remember what you were saying in terms of the stickers or appearance and what the response was?
No, I just remember getting a bit shitty that it could be better.
Gotcha.
Which is kind of my feeling with my current sort of creation of the app. It could be better.
Gotcha.
Not that it doesn't work. Not that it's not powerful. Not that people are already using it, sending me messages saying how incredible it is. But I'm kind of hung up on. It's almost like I need something to be pissed off about.
Maybe.
Well, there's a part of me looking for something that I can complain about potentially.
Fair enough. Well, that's one type of possibility. What was I going to say is the other? So there's your there may be a personality component of like, what am I trying to say? Needing. needing to feel upset about something. It's not the right way to put it, but then there's a different way to look at it, which is the businessman mindset of what could I do to improve this? In what way is it not good
I'm
enough?
very much a maximizer. Even if, a Formula One car is going 100 miles an hour, I'll say, well, how can we make it do 110?
Or
that's
even
very much
100.01. That's a little bit faster.
Yeah.
That's a little bit faster than the other guy.
And then I'm obsessing about the 0.01, not the 100.
Yeah, and there's in a way it's we would say the torture genius, which both of us are just about to pat ourselves on the back. Of course we are, right? But the idea of like what drives someone, what does it mean to be driven? And there's a certain mindset which is never quite satisfied. And that actually kind of leads people to put extra effort in, to think about things harder, longer, to put in that extra effort that makes it that much better. Because they're never quite always.
Who would I be if I wasn't being satisfied? Would everything just stop if I finally found peace and satisfaction?
Right. In some ways, I don't know. That's a great. So this is completely off topic, but a great philosophical question of what would we do if we got everything we ever wanted? Well, the answer would probably be nothing. Because there would be no more reason to do anything. So in some ways, the satisfaction of life is chasing things that you don't already have. And if you look at that practically, you as soon as you finish a project, you feel the satisfaction, you bask in the glow, you take a much deserved break, and then you start looking for something else to do, because sitting around doing nothing is boring. And there are different levels that people fall at in terms of what they consider to be boring. I like things nice and peaceful and quiet. There's some people who can't spend a week at home without planning their next vacation, that kind of thing. I never want to leave my house. So it's to each their own in that regard. But so just to try to I like to put a positive spin on as many things as possible, because why be negative? But so what is the benefit of being someone who is always a little bit unsatisfied? Well, you're always looking for something that could be a little bit better. So that can work for you as long as it doesn't get out of control. If it gets out of control, then we want to start looking at, is this adding to your life or taking away from it? Maybe if you calm down a little bit. So, but in this regard, you're having and you said this is, in real life related to you're launching a project with a team. So you are, as the, race car,
Yeah, I'm not driving these cars.
You're not driving.
We've just made them. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, in the dream, you're not, but you might, but you were supposed to be a driver in a way. And you were commenting that, like, aren't we both supposed to be driving one of these?
Oh, that's true. Yeah. Aren't you supposed to be driving?
Yep. And you guys were competitors, not on the same team, or were you actually members of the same team?
No. We were competitors. We're not on the same team. He had two vehicles from his team. I had 2 vehicles from mine. And instead of driving, we were just bickering in the from the sidelines.
Gotcha. That what came to my mind when you said that, and I want to say it before I forget it again, is that there may be a link between not being the driver and objects falling off the vehicle around the turns, that if you give up control, something's going to go wrong. That might be a little too superficial, but that immediately popped into my head, and I didn't know if it resonated with you.
Oh no, I'm very much like the person who likes to be in control. And I sometimes have this image of, I'm driving my car, and in the back seat is a guy that looks just like me saying, "Hey, Tim, if you just did this, life would be better. If you just did this, life would be better," right? And so I asked the question, Tim, what would your life be like if that guy was no longer in the back seat and you could actually just drive the way you want to drive and be who you are? And then it's like, well, who the fuck are you?
Yeah.
I haven't asked that question. I've been so busy, doing something that I think I'm supposed to be doing, like somehow my peace and happiness is attached to it. So the idea of, potentially projecting my sense of lack or sense of always needing to be better, like these Formula One race cars, the fastest cars in the world. And I'm like, can't we get the stickers right? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Definitely. Well, that's why I made sure to emphasize earlier that it's not necessarily superficial. Not necessarily. Maybe it is. Maybe it is. Maybe that's a little bit of a nudge to yourself, like, is that really what you want to be worried about here? But there was it seemed significant to me that you were surprised by the idea that you were not in the car. It's like I was supposed to be driving it, but instead I'm outside of the experience, observing. Not only that, bickering with the icon of betrayal that I've brought with me to to compete against. So that's, it could have meant something different if you were on the same team with them. Then you'd be wondering, okay, am I doing something to make myself like this other person? But instead, what it seems to be is that you're putting yourself as a competitor to that person, saying, well, who's best capable of winning this race? One aspect, you don't want to be that guy because you know what he did was wrong. You don't treat people like that.
Just 1 second. Just one second.
Please. Did you have some background noise?
Hey, come here, bub. Come on.
Oh, you got a puppy?
Come on.
Come on in. Who's your good boy?
Let me just quickly introduce you to.
Sure.
Bubba, come here. Bubba. Come in.
We love the aminals. Oh, look at that big boy. Hey, wait a minute. Did you just say his name is Bubba?
Yeah, Bubba.
His name is Bubba. This cat. No way.
Bubba.
Synchronicities all over the place today. That is fantastic. Well, we got ours from.
You know what's
Go ahead.
You know what's synchronous though? My daughter named him, right?
Yeah.
And I never said this, but Bubba was the name of my imaginary friend growing up.
Wow.
No shit.
That's another good one. Yeah. We got his isn't quite as heartwarming and magical. We just got it from Bubba Gump Shrimp Company.
Yep. Everyone thinks that's where we get that one from. Yeah.
Well, I mean, 2 seconds. The story of this guy was we found him. My wife did. The cat distribution system likes my wife because she gets out more than I do. So she found him in the bushes crying, brought him home. He was so hungry. He couldn't wait for us to get the little packet of, fish open, and he started chewing on the plastic, and he cut his own lip, and he had a piece of his lip hanging on. We thought, oh God, is he gonna have no lip for the rest of his life? And then it healed, but it was swollen.
Yeah.
And
very vascular.
And so we thought he's like the big lip Bubba Gump. So we called him Bubba.
Right,
Yeah, he's a great name. He's my Bubba boy. Bubba. He's sleeping. That's okay. What was I saying? Oh, it's so competitor versus teammate. So in one sense, it's very obvious that you don't want to be that guy. You look at this as an icon of like, you know how you felt and how you were treated, and you're like, well, I'm not going to do that to other people. On the other side of it, you do perhaps still admire him as a competitor in terms of, well, how much of his personality as an iconic
there
betrayer.
was a lot of powerful attributes that this guy had.
Yeah.
Like he could generate something out of nothing. He could make millions of dollars. And he could really kick ass in that field.
For sure.
But
yeah. And that happens a lot with even our worst enemies. We have a grudging respect for they're good at some things. They're very good at some things. Yeah. No, for sure. So it seems, the fact that you put yourself in a race, and a race has a winner and a loser, it's a direct competition versus this guy. And he's not on your team. So this is not imagining yourself becoming more like him, but can I compete with him? And probably there's an implicit question in there too. Can I compete with him without becoming like him, without developing negative personality traits that I don't want to display? If I
fair cop, mate. Yeah. Good insight.
Now, what did you think of or feel when I mentioned that?
No. That really dropped in because I have a certain fear of success, because part of me thinks there is a part of me that is selfish and can be self-contained, and if I do happen to become successful, would those parts of me start running the show?
Definitely. Yeah. No, I think there's an omnipresent risk of that. I'm almost afraid of my own success as well, because there's been periods in my life where I get a little bit of a big head and I start thinking I can do no wrong. And that is never the case. And I have to remind myself, I've screwed up plenty, and I've taken chances I shouldn't have, or treated people poorly, and I should remember that about myself, no matter how. So I'm almost glad to be a relatively small YouTuber in this, in this big.
But I mean,
big pond.
therein lies the thing, though. Like, are we playing small to sort of avoid our greatness and our fear of stepping into something?
Oh yeah, it's entirely possible. Like what I should do is aim for greatness and become better at not getting a big head, and instead of avoiding greatness as a solution.
Yeah. You're picking up what's being put down there, and there's, if you're looking at this as there's no coincidences, we both probably need to have this conversation. Who are we helping by playing small?
Yeah, not as many people as we could. Yeah, and then it just becomes that trick of, I need to learn how to balance better. I need to learn how to walk.
And let's dial it back to what we spoke about earlier. How many other people are in the situation where they're fearing becoming a certain thing because of success, and they're not doing it?
Yeah.
I was putting numbers to that, thousands, if not millions. So if we can be the ones that can do it for us,
oh yeah,
we can do it for them. We can maintain our integrity. We can, so something just dropped in there for me.
Yeah,
Ben. If we can be successful and still be the people we want to be, bringing our gifts in and having mastery over those parts of us that we know are there, then we can show it's possible to other people that are in that same restrained position.
I think so too. I mean, I think both of us want to be a beneficial guide of some kind. We want to show others how to grow, how to be better than they are, how to fulfill more of their innate potential. I think we're both very similar in that regard. It's both of us.
Yeah, and how can we actually do that if we're not fulfilling our own potential?
Exactly,
Ben.
Yeah, no, for sure. That dropped in with me too.
We're just a goddamn distraction. There's plenty of distracting noises out there. Do we want to be those people that actually play the bigger game, show people it's possible? And then I've usually found when you're in that space, there's that energetic signature that people can pick up on, that's unspoken, that goes down past words can reach. Mm-hmm. Just like you spoke about, the best counselors are the ones that have come out of, their addiction.
Yeah, for sure. And then the best people to guide someone to a better place is someone who's been there and learn the path and can, is just
overcome their own fears.
Yeah, definitely. So what are the things we're kind of missing a little bit here is why were you not in the car, and why are Legos and Tupperware falling out of it? So you seemed in the dream experience to be, if I have this correct, and tell me if I've got it out of sequence, but it was you found yourself bickering with this competitor and then realized neither one of you was in the vehicle. You were where you were supposed to be, perhaps. Okay, so if it happened in a different sequence of events, it would mean something else. So I wanted to get that the order correct. That's got to be. I mean, what it says to me, and I can't say it's got to be, but what it suggests right off the bat is the idea of being distracted with the wrong focus and missing the start of the race, or that there's some connection there. Realizing that focusing on the wrong thing has put you not in control as perhaps you had intended to be. Although we also looked at it from a different angle earlier, which is, the idea that it might be a good thing to surrender a little more control. But sometimes we accidentally surrender control because we don't focus on, we were bickering on the sidelines when we should have been driving. So I don't know which way feels.
In the perspective I saw it, it was like these cars were driving themselves. I didn't actually see or have a sense that anyone was in them. They were just driving around.
Fair enough.
Like automated. Yeah.
So it may not be what am I trying to say? It may not be some catastrophe that you're not in there, but it may still be a surprise that, wow, the cars drive themselves. Like this, in some ways, when you've created a product, an app, and released it to the wild, it drives itself in a lot of ways. It does what you told it to do for the people it's intended to serve. So I can imagine, like I say in dreams, it doesn't matter how bizarre something is, it doesn't seem strange in the dream. So the idea that I was supposed to be driving the car, but it seems to be operating itself. I was going somewhere with that and I lost it. I don't know if that brings any thoughts to your mind, or I'll try and go a different direction. I don't know. Maybe I've said everything I can.
The other thing was I seem to be less focused on the track and more focused on sort of nitpicking with a mate.
That's true.
With a former mate.
Do you have? That's one thing I haven't asked is what the nature of your bickering was about.
So we were discussing the events of the day and how, you know, we said, "Oh, aren't you supposed to be driving? Aren't you supposed to be driving?" You know, and it was sort of like we were sharing that space. We weren't, and it was like we would not have been together if it wasn't for that event. You know, not someone I'd normally be around. Gotcha. But then it was like we're looking at the race cars and we're just going, aren't you supposed to be? Well, aren't you supposed to be? You know what I mean? Like, as much as we weren't there to argue, there was a certain amount of pushback when the questions were asked.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So I'm struggling to put it into words a little bit about what is the dynamic that's going on there. It was almost as if, do you know the internet meme where it's two Spider-Mans and they're each pointing at each other? It was you. And it's like, it's meant to be, what is that meme supposed to say? It's like, it's the pot, in a way, the pot calling the kettle black. It's like two people who are both the same thing. Accusing each other of being the thing, not realizing you are also the thing.
Because earlier in my journey, I could have definitely been that guy. I could have definitely been the guy that betrayed trust, that didn't see the importance of connection to others, how deceitful, taking advantage. You know, if I'm being completely honest, I could have completely been that guy, you know, but, you know, for potentially lack of success, I never was able to isolate and then protect that part of me.
Yeah. I had another thought too. What is it? There's an interesting idea that there's an equivalence too. It's not like you found yourself on the sidelines and he was driving the car, so you're missing out on something. There's a similarity in your approach or your circumstances. That's not the right way to put it either. It's like you are both, neither one of you is driving. It isn't like one is and one isn't. Neither one of you has the advantage. You're both on the same level in terms of racing the race. The cars are driving. Neither one of you is driving. So there's things beyond your control, or there's a certain, as dissimilar as you are, there's a certain similarity of circumstances to the fact that you're both out there and both in the same boat in terms of, aren't you supposed to be driving? Well, perhaps both of you were, but neither of you are. So that says something.
Yeah, and the race was still happening. It was all happening without our input. They were still flying around the track.
For sure. And there's probably a similarity there too of like, so if you find even the most reprehensible person has some redeeming quality, and you could say, well, I would like to be more like that one redeeming quality. So in a sense of business competition or successful business implementation, there is a certain, if you're the leader, you can't always lead from the vanguard. Sometimes you got to stand up on the hill and watch the battle and direct the troops. You can't always be in the
that's pretty much it.
Yeah, you can't. So sometimes you got to be on the sidelines, and I'm not the driver anymore. Now I hire the driver, or the car drives itself, or something along those lines. You're in a different equivalent position. It would mean something. It would be a different understanding of your circumstance if you pictured yourself in the car and drove past him on the sideline. You'd be like, okay, now this means something. This means I'm approaching this problem differently, for better or worse. But instead you said, no, it's the same. But what's happening to the cars now? Were both cars shedding or falling out? Had the items falling out, or was it just yours, or just his, or both?
No, it was all of them.
And there was, okay, that's the other thing I didn't ask. There was more than just.
Well, I didn't see any other vehicles other than my two and his two on the track.
Okay, but all four of them were shedding parts or pieces.
Yeah.
So
The more they went around, the more parts they shed.
Gotcha. So you realize it as a kind of a progressive problem, a problem that would get worse the longer it went on.
It was almost like when they powered up, this stuff would fall out of them. So when they're coming out of the corner and they're powering up, this stuff would fall out. Like when you put your foot down on the accelerator, it would throw out the Tupperware and the Lego.
I think those are two fantastic icons too. I mean, those are both things that are strongly from my childhood. So I think of like my mom had Tupperware. She had the Tupperware that was the old, thick, ridge top 1970s.
Yeah.
She had that stuff for years.
Unbreakable.
And now we've got like the thin plastic containers.
You step on them, they're broke.
Yeah. Or you microwave them too many times and they melt through or something. It's just not the same quality. Excuse me. So that was one question I was going to ask is when you see this Tupperware in your mind, is it the old stuff or the new stuff? How do you conceive of that?
You know what? I'm pretty sure it's the old stuff. The ridge lid type stuff.
Yeah. That's actually exactly what I saw in my head when you described it, but I wanted to make sure. And then the Legos is just random deconstructed pieces, not...
Yeah, like individual singular pieces, not the ones like, you know how you've got, one rivet, two rivet, three rivet sort of amounts, like just the single rivets, sometimes flat, sometimes square, but just singular. There was no joining parts. It was just like the very basic building blocks.
Yeah. It's not like an entire space shuttle fell off and smashed on the ground into a million
No.
pieces.
It was literally in just like if you look in any kid's, play cabinet, you'd see a little box of Lego little bits and pieces that make no sense. At one stage, there might have been a space shuttle, but not anymore.
The old bucket o Legos. Yeah. Gotcha. Okay, so individual little pieces. Yeah, and that's interesting too, because I wonder how many people might store Legos in a very large old Tupperware. That might be a thing. But definitely, there's an icon of storage and preservation, and an icon of.
There was food in the Tupperware containers. I think there was a cabbage. Yeah,
okay.
I think there was like a cabbage in it was like a burnt orange container with that ridge lid. It had a cabbage in. Yeah.
Very cool. Well, that was the next thing I was going to ask is, you're way ahead of me there. Was there anything in the Tupperware? And the one thing you do remember was a cabbage. So I don't know if you dwell on the idea of like Tupperware, cabbage. What's going on with that? Does that take you back to anything in the past? Does that mean something to you?
Well, you know what? I call her my then wife, not my ex-wife, because I stand for a positive, future for her. And I notice when I say ex-wife, there's a lot of attraction to that. And if you say it, people tend to jump on it, right? So I always say then wife. My then wife used to have cabbages in that same Tupperware container. Yeah.
Okay. So something.
And now that I think about it, shit, I never even saw that.
Right? Yeah. Oh, that's why whatever this is, it works, because we just talk about it and then bam, new connections come up. So there's something about the process of that vehicle.
As it powered up, all this stuff fell out.
Yeah.
So shedding the past to move forward because because it's powering forward.
Very, very well could be. Yeah. So that it could be an icon of her in specifically that regard of like, well, she was a part of my past. So letting that go. Legos could be an icon of these are toys I played with as a kid. And I set those aside for building with other materials, building a company, building something more meaningful than just you can do the same type of thing, but one is just a toy and the other's more serious. So, but so Legos, but then again, it can go a bunch of different directions. It depends on what resonates. But man, you had a moment there where it's like, shedding the past. If you're going to hit the accelerator, another metaphor that comes to mind is leaving things in the rearview mirror, and you hit the gas to get away from the stuff in the past faster. So there's a little bit of that feels right to me. But
well, it was like the Tupperware with the cabbage in got extruded from the vehicle. You know, when it was powering out of that corner, it was just naturally going out, a bit like you know when you get those stress balls that you squeeze and then it pops out in different areas and all that sort of stuff through your hand. That's what it was like. So it was like the stuff just popping out the side of the car as it sort of powered up.
Very cool. Yeah. And then I'm glad you said that too, because I was like, was it? Forgot to ask. Was it falling out of the trunk? Was it falling out of an open side door? Was it falling out from the undercarriage? No, it actually kind of popped off, almost like a
extruded
gremlin.
out. Yeah,
popped off of the vehicle itself. It was very, very interesting. I think I might have to meditate on that for a while longer, because I don't know what to make of that method, that specific method. That's fantastic.
Now, just checking, can you guys hear Bubba snoring right now, or is that a problem at all? Can you hear him?
No. I'm
just wondering.
I have not up to this moment. So no.
No, all good. Okay, no worries.
Discord's got a pretty good noise suppression thing. So anyway, it's one of the reasons I like to use it as a recording device. Well, it seems like we've got a pretty interesting arc to this dream. I mean, you wake up from it, and I was at a racetrack, and I was arguing over stickers, and this guy I don't remember, and now we've got this story related to your. If we try to put it together into a narrative, you're launching a company. You've got employees. You're trying to build something for yourself. You're in a competitive market, and what you imagine is, I'm bringing my team to a competition. There was. I've got an icon of a successful businessman that wasn't maybe the best person, and I want to be both. I want to be better. I want to be as successful, but a better person than he was in that regard. Treat people well. I'm on the sidelines.
A better person than I could be. Yeah.
Yeah. Or than I am currently. What do they say? Judge yourself not in comparison to others, but who you were yesterday. I love that turn of phrase too. So you're looking through this, like, what am I trying to say? How do I approach becoming more successful? What is it going to take to get there? What is it like? What is the analogy that I'm, it's like I'm going to a race and I'm competing against other people that many of whom in these spaces are going to be like this guy. They're going to be not the most scrupulous, good people, but very, very capable. And that part of the process means you're going to have to shed some of the past to allow yourself to accelerate forward, or that the process of leaning into the curve, coming out of the curve and hitting the gas is gonna shake loose some of these things that you don't need anymore, that are extraneous to the process, perhaps. I think we got something interesting there. Did you have more specific?
No, that's super cool, and I really hope the listeners are getting a lot from this as well.
Oh, for sure. And that's the whole point too, is like, what is, for the listener, for me, solving the puzzle is fantastic too. But then really the point is for you to have these moments of epiphany, like, yeah, wait, I'm just feeling something's clicked in for me. Because now you can look at that and go, okay, the dream itself was meant to focus my attention on some concerns I have about how to do what I'm doing well or better, and what the pitfalls might be, and what I want to be aware of in the process and what I want to avoid as an outcome. And then when we get it all dialed in, now hopefully the best possible outcome is that you will now be able to go forward in that awareness, making better decisions, avoiding the pitfalls you don't want, leaning into to shedding the things you don't want. All the things the dream was trying to say, you can do it now. You can do it consciously. Now you can focus yourself and choose your own destiny in that regard.
Yeah, no, I get that. And that removes some of the fear I have around, maybe I will become like that person that I hate, but I really I as well.
Yeah. At least
not hate, but someone I used to hate, but also really admire.
No, for sure. And I think the dream highlights that you have a choice, and that you don't have to be like that guy, that you can compete, even if it feels scary, even if that fear is present of like, I don't know if this is going to be good enough, but I think you at some level do know that you can do it and you don't have to go that route. Was it Jedi Sith? You don't have to embrace the dark side.
I think it's, if we go off the analogy, the ultimate goal of fear is to immobilize you. There's a part of me wanting to immobilize me with fear, but when I take that action, it's going to be dispelled.
Yeah. And it's an interesting thing too, because, so if we bring that additional layer to the dream, you brought a team with you and that team put the car on the racetrack to the degree that you suddenly discovered you weren't driving, but the race is still happening. So it's one of those things where it's like, if you construct the situation properly, if you've got the right team in place, you can afford to be the guy who worries about the stickers because the car runs, they're going to put it on the track. You don't even have to drive it. There's all these additional layers of I think, reinforcing the idea that you're on the right track. Your brain loves your brain loves puns. It does, and that's why it'll tell you these things. And without doing this process of talking it through, I wouldn't have gotten to that pun as a likely truism for this dream. Just because you're on a racetrack doesn't mean you're on the right track. But I think this particular dream does say that you have the part of you that is accurately assessing your own competence, is telling you things are better than they appear. And some of the stuff you're worried about, you don't have to be worried about. And some of the things that seem superficial, like stickers and appearance, might be more important than you think. But that is the luxury of the position you've put yourself in, is I can be the guy that says, how do we make the app icon a little more attractive so people want to click on it? You can afford to work on that because you got a team that's getting the car up and running, and you ain't even got to drive it. I think it's a very positive, self-assessment that you got going on there. That's my diagnosis.
And, no, I like it because, ambushes aren't a problem if you know they're coming.
Exactly. Yeah.
If you don't know they're coming, then you're always on hyper alert, like when, how. And if they do happen, you're often very exhausted because you've been hyper alert. So to me, this has alerted myself to, a potential, hazard that now that I'm aware of, I'm aware of it now. I don't have to fear an unseen attack. So there's a great reduction in anxiety now that I could speak. Now that my subconscious has given the images to express itself, and we could articulate that so it actually goes up to the upper part of the brain, I suppose,
for sure. Yeah.
To then, to integrate that consciously.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, if you feel like we've gotten as much as we can out of this, we'll wrap it up.
This has been awesome, and I can only hope that the people listening has gotten just as much as we have. It's been absolutely awesome. Having this, it felt like it's flowed very easily.
Right.
It's a credit to your craftsmanship, Ben.
Who would have thought we'd go 2.5 hours? I thought we'd get 90 minutes or so, but this always happens when I'm talking to someone that's got genuine ideas and they're just being real and sharing their thoughts. It always goes longer than I expect. No shade thrown at the people who got to keep it tight. I know not everybody has 2.5 hours, so that's. But what I'm going to say, we'll do the outro here. This has been our friend Tim Thomas from Brisbane, Australia, the founder of Breathwork in Bed. And reading back my own notes, if I can, he is on a mission to uplift people and the world through quality sleep with 10 years of experience in the hardcore veteran recovery space, bringing a unique lived experience in health, wellness, breath work, and mental health. He's also the author of Fight, Flight, Feel. You can find him at breathworkinbed.com.au, and you can look for the app under the keywords Breathwork in Bed. The cat's eating the paper. Go ahead, take it. It's all yours now. Watch now.
And just a bit of a call to action. When people subscribe to the Breathwork in Bed, I send them a bunch of free stuff. The spamming laws in Australia is pretty tight, so you do have to confirm you're not a robot. And once you confirm your email address, that's when I'll send you a bunch of free stuff that'll set you up very powerfully.
Very cool. I encourage you all to go and take a look. And then I'll try and keep this short. See if I can do it in under 60 seconds. For my part, would you kindly like, share, and subscribe? Tell your friends. Always need more volunteer dreamers. I do video game streams most Monday through Fridays, 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. Pacific. I can't remember which book I've got over here that I'm showing you all. But go to BenjaminTheDreamWizard.com. You can find that title, downloadable MP3 versions of this very podcast, an encyclopedia, custom cocktails, all kinds of neat stuff. Check it out. Also, if you would head on over to BenjaminTheDreamWizard.locals.com, building a community there attached to my Rumble account, free to join. That's enough out of me. Tim, thank you for being here. It was a great talk.
It was unbelievable. It was an absolute dream.
We love the puns. And everybody out there, thank you for listening.